Dogs essentially love to be loved by human beings, and therefore they want to please their human masters, whereas cats actually despise us all and would like to kill us if they had their own way. Life's tough, but it's tougher when you're very stupid.
This is talkSPORT. We are the two Mikes, and it's time to say a very warm welcome and a good morning to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good morning to Mr. Parry.
And a very good morning to you, Mike. And it is a good morning, isn't it, after the night before? It certainly is for Everton on so many counts. Yes. There were so many positive things about that game, including, by the way, which we'll get to a bit later, a £200,000 donation from Everton Football Club towards the cost of sending a lovely little boy, 5-year-old Bradley Lowry, to America for treatment for his aggressive cancer.
Yes. They've been getting an awful lot of plaudits on Twitter for that and elsewhere, and quite rightly so.
Yes, well, I totally agree. £200,000 is a huge amount of money, but in the world of football, and we're reading only today that Manchester United's profits exceeded £555 million in the last financial year.
First time for any English club, right? Any British club, I suppose.
Any British club, that's absolutely right. And you say to yourself, wow, football is awash with dosh. But isn't it nice that somebody's going to the right places?
It is very nice.
Absolutely
a wash
smashing.
with dosh, that's rather good, isn't it?
Absolutely.
At this time of the morning.
But getting away from that magnificent gesture, the football issue, which most impressed me about Mr. Koeman, wasn't actually that it was that he got the team to score 3 goals in the second half, but it was because he made an absolutely vital, a brave and a decision nobody else could see. He took off Ross Barkley at half-time.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, that was brilliant, because Ross Barkley was supposed to be, the next great footballer to come out of Everton. He lost his England place, to which Mr. Koeman merely reacted by saying, well, it's up to him to win it back. Yeah. And he didn't show much sympathy for Ross Barkley after 45 minutes tonight. Yeah. So instead of Ross Barkley allowing his lack of an England place to motivate him and fire him up...
Are you saying it's put him further down the ladder?
What I'm saying is, Mr. Koeman looked at him and thought, is that boy going to fight back now and try and get his England place back? If he is, it'll make him a better Everton player. But he saw in 45 minutes tonight that Ross Barkley, in his estimation, is deflated by that England decision and simply didn't seem to have the will to want to fight back tonight. So a player like that, in Mr. Koeman's eyes, is no good to his team. Come half-time, whoosh, the hook comes out.
So does that mean he'll drop him for the next couple of games, you think?
Well... If I was...
He brought on Mr. Delafeu, didn't he?
I was about to say, if I was the manager of Everton, I think I'd probably start the next game with the team that finished the last game. Yes. And the team that started the second half of the last game. Yeah. That's the only answer to that. It's Middlesbrough, it's on Saturday, it's 5:30.
It's another easy game, really, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Everton have been very lucky in the teams apart from the opening game against Spurs, which are always going to be very tough, we've now played the rest of the teams. We've played Stoke and Southampton, who are both in the bottom two. Yeah. No, hang on, I'm going mad.
Stoke and West Brom.
Sorry, you're absolutely right. Stoke and West Brom in the bottom two, and
a draw with Spurs.
A draw with Spurs and Sunderland, who are below halfway.
Exactly.
So haven't really played a team in the top half apart from Spurs.
Apart from Spurs, which is the first game, and 1-1 result was probably all right. Do you know I've got a massively interesting statistic for you? Would you like this?
Yes, I would. Yeah.
Ronald Koeman is the first Everton boss since Thomas McIntosh to win his first 2 competitive away games in charge.
Really?
Did you know who Thomas McIntosh was?
No.
He was the manager of Everton in 1919.
No, I wouldn't have even known that myself. That? Yeah, that is. Everton didn't have a manager in those days. He must have been the club's general secretary or something like that. Seriously, they didn't because
isn't that an amazing statistic, though?
That is an amazing statistic. The first 2 away games. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. Because I thought when we won our...
So presumably David Moyes didn't win his first 2 away games.
Well, I'm thinking about Howard Kendall.
Howard Kendall must not have done.
When we won
Roberto Martinez.
2 league titles in 3 years and came second in the one in between. Yeah. We didn't win our first 2 away games. Well, that's a great start. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Yes. The other issue about the game, I thought, was... I saw something in David Moyes' eyes tonight, and they were hollow. Yeah. I mean, what I'm saying is...
Do you know what? I'd say this to you. I said to you that, he's kind of a discredited man now because having failed at Manchester United, which may not have been through any fault of his own, he then went and failed at Real Sociedad in quite a big way, and he's now in charge of a team that look absolutely destined to go down into the Championship.
It's almost banged on, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure you can do anything about that. And he looks like a man who's lost his confidence.
Well, haunted. He looks haunted to me.
Yeah.
And also, The other thing is, it sounds strange. I suppose I'm speaking about it because I'm an Everton fan. But to see him walking up and down the touchline at Sunderland with a red and white striped tie on just looked ridiculous because he was associated with Everton for so very long, you know. And Everton were the other team in the stadium
and
tonight.
He went from Everton to a bigger club. I think you'll agree, because Manchester United is the biggest club in the world. And failed miserably and very publicly. And who could forget that Grim Reaper guy that was standing behind him in that final game before he got the bullet? You know, terribly humiliating situation.
And the other stat is that when he was manager at Manchester United, Everton beat him home and away. And, of course, last night Everton went to the home of his new club and beat him. So he hasn't beaten Everton since he left them.
Exactly.
And that's 3 seasons now.
So it's not looking very good for poor old David Moyes. But I'm pleased to see that you've returned with a sort of compassionate view of the world as opposed to
How do you mean?
Your normal aggressive form.
What are you on about?
Well, because, I mean, I don't know if it's anything to do with the moon tonight, but you just seem to be in a very kind of, understanding and compassionate... you're not feeling... you're feeling a bit sorry for Ross Barkley, feeling a bit sorry for David Moyes.
Yeah.
I think that's a change.
Well, I'm not really feeling sorry for them. I'm saying that, the world can tip you upside down in the matter of minutes. Yeah. And certainly in a footballer's life, 3 games where Ross Barkley started the season an England player. He started the season as the great young hope to emerge from Everton. He's still young. He was 17 when he made his debut. And he's only 21 now, I think. And it's all gone very, very wrong for him.
It has.
And
do you blame Hodgson for that, or do you blame Martinez for that?
No, I'll blame Ross Barkley.
Yeah.
Ross Barkley, if he's got all that innate talent in his in his lungs and his legs and his head and his thighs and his arms, he's got to put it to use. And you can't just keep strolling around on the belief that you are great because people keep telling you you're great. You've got to prove it.
That's the problem with football these days,
of course
isn't
it
it?
is.
Because managers, not necessarily managers of the team, but managers of your empire.
Yes.
Because they've all got empires now, right? Property empires and all sorts of other things. Their agents are telling them they're brilliant. Their families are telling them they're brilliant.
That's right,
Ross Barkley believes that he should have been used in the England team in the squad over in the Euros, but he wasn't. So, he must be feeling a little bit out of sorts.
I absolutely totally agree. And that's what it's all about.
Yes.
So it's looking great. Everton are only 3rd in the table on, I think it's...
Well, it's alphabetical order, I think.
Order, yeah, because of Chelsea.
Because the goal difference is the same as Chelsea.
It is, yeah,
and
exactly
C comes before E.
It does, yeah.
So absolutely. I think if Everton were called something else, like City of Everton, they might be... actually, they wouldn't be, no, because I comes after H.
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, talking about people whose careers not just faltering, but actually have ended full stop completely. What about Cameron? What about old David Cameron?
Thanks a lot, Dave. This is a guy who, up until, I think, before we had the referendum result, up until the referendum was being held, I was saying to you, I think this guy will probably go down in history. Certainly he was being talked about as one of the great Tory leaders, having done quite good things for the country. Yeah. He's now completely kind of blown the country up and has walked away.
Yeah. Funny enough, there is another person whose career might have ended as well, and that's Gary Neville.
Yes,
because all the stuff we've been hearing today and all the stuff being reported in tomorrow morning's back page, Gary Neville says he might never be a coach again.
Yeah,
but not many people would worry about that because he's such a good TV pundit.
Right.
But on the Cameron thing, he's done exactly the right thing. When John Major got absolutely walloped by Tony Blair the first time, the most sensible thing he said during the 5 years of his prime ministerial reign, he said at the end, he said, when the curtain comes down, it's time to get off the stage.
Yes.
And he said that because his father had been some sort of a clown, hadn't he?
No, his father was a trapeze artist.
Yeah, well, that's a clown.
I told you about that when we first met him. We joked about whether we should put our hands in that French chalk.
Oh, that's right,
hands double-handed.
Double-handed, that's right.
Like they catch people.
That's right, yeah, you told me. Yeah, it was very funny, that. I didn't laugh at the time.
It
I'm
was
not laughing now.
He was Foreign Secretary at the time.
He was Foreign Secretary,
I know you don't like to mix with these people at these high levels.
No. He was only Foreign Secretary for 5 months.
He wasn't very long, no.
No, exactly.
But he came to New York and went to address the UN.
Oh, actually, sorry. He was Foreign Secretary for a year, and then he was Chancellor for 5 months, and then he was Prime Minister. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but now he's a Lord, of course, so he hasn't quite left the stage, has he?
Who?
Lord Major, isn't he a Lord?
No, he's not even accepted. I think he's accepted a knighthood, isn't he? Is he Sir John Major?
Sure he's a Lord.
He's definitely not a Lord. He's definitely not. Definitely, he's not in the House of Lords.
Right.
Definitely not in the House of Lords.
Okay.
Now, as for Cameron, all it proves to me is, I'm glad he's gone because when you're walking around the House of Commons as a backbench MP, and you've got to literally fight for space for a seat on the back benches to listen to the Chancellor
with
present
all
his
those
next
people
budget.
with mad swivelling eyes, as they used to be described.
With all the people who you've never promoted over the years, who thought they were genii and brilliant, and you should have given them great jobs, and they hate you. When you've been in a position of power and you're suddenly thrown back amongst the ranks, you know what I mean? For whatever reason, it's the worst possible place to be.
Yes.
Because everybody wants their revenge on you for things that you didn't actually do.
Exactly.
You know, I mean,
but also everyone who was Cameron's kind of ally in the cabinet was booted out by Theresa May. So for him to say, well, of course I support Theresa May, that's not true either.
No, it's all gone. But what it proves to me is what I've always thought from the start with Cameron, that being Prime Minister was actually a bit of a game. Most people who become Prime Minister, like Mrs. Thatcher, like Tony Blair, had this absolutely burning ambition from the age of about 14 to become Prime Minister. Yeah. David Cameron couldn't think of anything else to do in life.
Yes.
And he came in here once into talkSPORT when he was leader of the opposition.
Did you not keep calling him by the wrong name?
No, I didn't, but I forgot what his name was when I was interviewing him. And
you didn't call him Steve, did you?
No, I didn't call him Steve. I just didn't call him anything because I forgot what his name was. Seriously. And I just kept nodding my head and all this. Yeah. But he was talking garbage then. He was talking, a load of liberal sort of wishy-washy, mushy nonsense. Right. And I kept saying to him, no, I don't think that's the way the British people think, Mr. Cameron.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they do.
Right.
I know they do.
Right.
But I knew then that he was completely out of touch.
This was when he was still in opposition, though, right?
He was still in opposition. He was leader of the opposition. But he'd say things like...
Take your time, by the way.
He was walking around with a cup that had talkSPORT written on it. He was walking around outside. And,
very unwise.
Sorry?
Very unwise, that.
Very unwise. And I went out to say hello to him. He said, I said, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. I've always got time for talkSPORT.
All right.
We didn't really...
Was he an Aston Villa fan that day or West Ham?
West Ham, with no idea. All I know is he was walking around proudly with his talkSPORT cup to prove that he was a talkSPORT person.
Yeah.
He thought the station was 100% sport.
Yes.
So he wanted to know which sport we were going to talk about. And I said, no, we can talk about... It's me and Andy Townsend.
Yeah.
And I said, no, we're going to talk about your political ambitions. Oh, really? And he was quite shocked. But I knew that he was playing at it. To him, it's just a game.
I know what you mean. He's one of those public schoolboys that just kind of does stuff.
Yeah, seems like a good Jake.
Yeah.
And then he'd leave Eton and say, I'm going up to Oxford. And after that, I don't know, what about PM, eh?
Yeah, right.
And he would have said that. He would have said that.
Oh, exactly.
And he went through with it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's not like some of those very much more kind of what you would call basic people on the Labour front benches.
No.
Who speak with very nice northern accents and sometimes do not look as if they've got a clue what's going on.
No, that's right.
Which is not to say that people with northern accents haven't got a clue what's going on, but it's a very different world, isn't it?
Oh, Cameron was completely out of touch, and the reason he went off and started playing with Huskies, in the Arctic Circle and all that.
Well, he wanted to be the first Green PM, didn't he?
He wanted to be the first Green PM, but also he had all these focus groups telling him what he should be doing that they picked up from the people. He didn't have any thoughts of his own.
No.
He didn't have any thoughts of his own,
he doesn't believe in anything. I mean, the
idea
that he's a sort of, what they call conviction politician.
Oh, utter rubbish. He's a liberal
nonsense.
to start off with. He'd have been a Whig
in
150 years ago.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been a Conservative.
No.
And, in fact, his life was so comfortable, country houses and houses abroad.
Well, his wife's richer than he is.
His wife's richer than he is, and, he comes from...
She has got a tattoo, though.
She has got a tattoo. He comes from aristocracy and all that. So it was just a jolly jape, really. And he hasn't got a profession. When he came out of Oxford with a first-class honours degree...
He was like a sort of PR,
He was a PR at Carlton Television or something, wasn't he?
Thames, I think it was.
Thames or Carlton.
Or London Weekend or something.
So it's not like, some of them are like,
But he's also now completely destroyed any legacy he might have had
exactly,
by having made Britain have a referendum to take him out of the European Union.
Which effectively ended his career.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, listen, we better stop because there's a lot of very, very serious timekeeping goes on this show.
That's right.
We'll talk about Gary Neville coming up. We're going to do listography as well, so send us a few ideas, hashtag them listography and tweet them at the two mics. This is talkSPORT.
Madness, they call it madness. Madness, they call it madness.
This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. Got quite a few tweets to read out. You can catch us, of course, at the two mics. You can find us on Facebook as well.
Yes.
Daz says this, back on nights. Now I can get some normality back in my life rather than chasing you round all hours of the day. I mean, it's been funny that people have been saying they never know where to find us. We've been here from 1 to 4, albeit that it was a show perhaps recorded somewhere else.
Indeed.
On Talk Radio or talkSPORT. But we haven't actually been away from this particular slot. It's just that we're back now in person.
It has been broadcast in a slightly different form because it's not been utterly and absolutely to the second live, if you see what I mean. But nevertheless, we thought better to put it out as a repeat, so to speak, than not at all.
Exactly. Gemma says this, Everton playing bottom clubs, don't get carried away. And Mark says, how about a gold medal for the amount of Bolloxio spoken in a minute?
Yeah,
Not sure
well,
whether he's referring to you or
something
me
like that. You haven't had a Lukaku yet.
No, I haven't. But,
so I thought I'd just give you one of those.
Thank you for that. Ross says, is Porky's good mood due to Sarah, the business partner? Did he end up getting a kiss? Ha ha.
A
gentleman never tells.
A gentleman never tells, but it was very much a business meeting, believe me.
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to say to you you'll see from my Twitter feed tonight that
I don't study your Twitter feed.
Well, I'm now programmed to the Martinez. So when we went 1-0 up, instead of doing the old Lukaku,
I saw that you were still slightly nervous.
What I said, hang on, there's 30 minutes to go. Let's not get carried away.
Right.
After the second one went in, I did the old Lukaku. Yeah. And the third one went in, I said, now please go for 4, because if we get 4, we end up in second place.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
It would have been good, yeah.
But it is an extraordinary state of affairs. Saud says this, I thought Martinez was the greatest manager who had ever been born. No. Mr. Parry seems to have changed his mind again. Nothing new there. The world is safe.
No, it's not a question of me changing my mind. It is absolutely a question of me... You see, what you've got to do is you've got to show faith in your club.
Yes.
So if your chairman and the board decide to appoint somebody, you have to immediately give them your whole backing. Now, the difference between Mr. Martinez and Mr. Koeman, and I mean this quite sincerely, because we're going to be talking to Adrian Heath in a minute.
Yeah.
A man... I'll tell you it was interesting.
Yeah.
On the bench tonight, sitting next to David Moyes, was Paul Bracewell.
Oh, yeah.
Who played in the same team as Adrian Heath when Everton had their great glory years in the 80s. He'll tell us about Paul.
Is he his assistant or something there?
He's one of the... Yeah, I think he's assistant to David Moyes. Right. Yeah, I think he is, yeah.
Shall I give you an update on the score in the Pittsburgh-Washington
Nobody cares,
game?
Mate. Nobody cares.
7-6 currently to Pittsburgh.
Oh, my God. It's
7-6.
Sorry, who's playing? Pittsburgh and who?
Pittsburgh Steelers against the Washington Redskins.
Oh, the Washington Redskins. Actually, I went to see them when I lived in Washington, so I shouldn't mock...
Well, you shouldn't mock them.
No, exactly, yeah.
No, exactly right.
Of course,
second quarter.
Some American people want them to change their name.
Yeah.
Because they think it's, a bit...
Talking of America, what do you make of the whole Hillary Clinton scenario?
I was about to bring
have you seen the way they've covered it over there? I mean, wall-to-wall coverage of,
what's
wrong with Hillary?
I'm not surprised,
but
because...
they've now turned it into not just what's wrong with her, because everyone now knows that she's admitted she's got pneumonia.
Yeah.
But they're also now saying that actually all of this feeds into this world of secrecy that she occupies, where it's not about so much that she's got something wrong with her, it's the fact she tried to pretend she didn't have anything wrong.
Well, and that goes along with using private email accounts instead of government email accounts. So God knows who she's been talking to over the years. We simply don't know.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, the pictures were devastating. She walks towards the car and she leans against a bollard. She clearly puts her hand to her head and said, I don't think I feel very ill. She then tries to move forward and her legs go from under her.
Yeah.
And she's only caught by the Secret Service guys who surround the presidential candidates. Yeah. And she's then put into the car and whisked off to Chelsea, that's her daughter's home, in Manhattan.
Right. But then she came back out again.
I know,
it started waving.
Wrong with me. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Only then for news to be released that she's got pneumonia.
Yeah.
Most people who've got pneumonia are usually wired up to some dreadful machine in a hospital.
Well, you can die from pneumonia.
Of course you can, and having fluid pumped off your lungs or something like that. You
know? But, I mean, the other problem as well for any politician is falling down is something like the worst thing you can ever be seen doing. Do you remember Neil Kinnock when he fell over in the surf down at Brighton? And he never recovered from that. There wasn't actually anything wrong with him.
He never, ever recovered. Walked along the beach in Brighton.
Yeah, with his wife.
Glenys. And he'd just become the new leader of the Labour Party. So it was one of these dreamy pictures, you know, of him walking on the beach.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a shale beach, and he gets towards the end because they wouldn't let the cameraman any closer. So the cameraman turned their cameras up. They focused right on him, you see what I mean? As that happened, he turned round to wave, and as he did, a wave came in. He lost his footing on the shale, slipped into the water, and then got up. But he then gave a rude gesture to the cameraman, you know, for capturing his moment of embarrassment and shame.
Exactly. But, I mean, people saw him then as a little clown, didn't
Well, do you remember Bob Dole?
Bob Dole was the other one.
He fell off the stage.
He did.
I saw him fall off the stage, and I thought, that's the end of you.
Yeah, and it was.
Well, funny enough, because we've got Sandra coming on from Australia tonight.
We have.
And do you know who the only politician in the world who survived it was John Howard.
Really?
John Howard, in an election there, many, many years ago, but I was in Australia at the time, he fell off the stage as well, but somehow got elected.
Right.
It must have been, you know, the opposition was very poor or something.
Yeah, well, we have to ask her about that, because I read a book once, which was fascinating.
You read a book once? Yeah, I should imagine that is about the only time you ever read a book.
Well, actually, I've read quite a lot of books, as opposed to you, who haven't read any books at all.
I've read many classics.
Have you? What was the last book you read?
Last book I read?
Yeah.
would have been one of the ones for the reviews that I've done, the extensive book reviews. So it would have been...
Well, like John McEntee's book.
I think it was John McEntee's book,
You didn't read the whole thing, did you?
Well, after I read the review to say there's not one funny story in this book...
Yeah, but reading the reviews of the book is not the same as reading the actual book.
I read a bit of the book.
Now, this was by a guy, William Safire, I think his name was. He used to be a New York Times columnist. Remember
Brilliant
him?
writer.
And he was a former White House aide as well.
Brilliant writer.
I think in maybe in the Nixon administration.
Safire was legendary in the 80s, 90s.
But I think he was Nixon's aide or something like that in the White House. But
he
wrote
a speechwriter.
He wrote this novel about a president who went blind. He tried to keep it secret from everyone because he knew that if he admitted that he was going blind, and it was one of these degenerative things, so each day his eyesight was getting worse and worse and worse. And it was all about how the White House completely protected the secret.
It's brilliant.
And tried to make it so nobody ever found out this guy was blind. It's a brilliant book.
What a brilliant plot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you think that the Hillary situation could be something along those lines, do you?
The problem for everyone involved in the whole Trump-Hillary scenario is that if Trump was standing against anybody else, he would have no chance of winning. But she's so unpopular already.
Yes.
She's already got this horrible business with the emails. She's already got people looking into her finances and saying, where's all this Clinton Foundation money coming from?
That's right.
Where's it all going?
Yeah.
Now suddenly she's trying to hide her health issue from everybody.
Yeah.
This is going to give Trump a huge boost, I reckon.
Oh, of course it is. And
maybe we should talk to an American expert this week.
We are going to. Don't worry.
Should we do that?
Oh, I've got one lined up for tomorrow night. You don't worry about that.
Yeah. Who is it?
Sorry?
Who is it?
It's a guy from the University of... What's the city between Washington and New York? And
Philadelphia?
No, it's got a very famous
Baltimore?
paper. Baltimore, thank you.
The Baltimore Sun?
A guy from the Baltimore Sun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's coming on tomorrow night.
I'll look forward to that.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is that even if she hadn't admitted to the... as you quite rightly say, even if she hadn't admitted to the pneumonia, and the because she had a coughing fit last week, which I'd missed.
Yeah, I'd missed that as well. I'm fine. Yeah, no, you're not, darling. You've got pneumonia.
And all this kind of stuff. Even if she had admitted to that, you're quite right. The fact that you see an American president or would-be president sink to their knees on the sidewalk, I mean, it also happened to. Do you remember Jimmy Carter collapsed when he was out running?
That's right.
That was the end of him. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Peanut farmer and all. There's just been a touchdown scored by Pittsburgh, by the way, so I think they're now 14-6 up against Washington Redskins. We'll keep you updated with that.
Well, blow my socks off.
I'm not doing anything like that. This is a family show. Coming up, we're going to talk about Gary Neville. We're going to be talking to Adrian Heath as well. It's listography too. We have to talk about winners and losers as well. This is talkSPORT. talkSPORT. We are the two mics. There will, of course, be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, and the podcasting scenario hasn't been exactly smooth in the various different guises we've been in.
What do you mean?
Well, when we've been on Talk Radio, for example,
yes,
the podcasting has sometimes been, shall we say, a little less than
100%
right.
Isn't that a little unkind to your colleagues who try very, very hard to get these things done? You know?
They were planks.
You don't hear me criticising my colleagues. What did you say then?
I said they're a bunch of planks. They couldn't get the podcast right for about the first 2 weeks we were doing it.
God.
You know, whereas we're now back with the professionals, so they'll be doing it right.
You won't be looking for any favours anytime soon for any of our technical staff, will you?
People understand that I call it the way it is. I don't say things just to keep people sweet. Lizzie says this: thank goodness back on at night. Abnormal service has been resumed, folks. Good to have you back. Kisses from Hilton Towers.
Indeed.
She says. Lynn says, I thought I woke up dreaming you're actually back. How happy am I?
Yeah, how happy are you?
And Peter says, business meeting, ? Porky, your right hand is placed on her lower back buttock area. She had a wedding ring on as well.
No.
Business, eh? No, I think you'll find out it was her right hand, wasn't it? She had a ring on.
Yeah, I think so. Ring? Yeah. Well, I don't know. I didn't look. I mean, look, there was no malevolent intentions or anything like that. It was purely a business meeting.
Your hand is a little bit close to her nether regions.
Well, I can assure you there is no intention there for that to be anything other than perfectly proper.
Really?
And we need
What's wrong with you?
We need an image advisor. We need an sorry.
What's wrong with you?
Oh, that's typical of you to say that, isn't it?
I mean, it's not like you to not look for some advantage when a woman is concerned.
That's the sort of thinking pattern that you come from, isn't it? That really is. That's the lowest of the low.
Not at all.
I mean, look, we need help with our image.
Women have needs as well, you know.
We need. I'm not getting into that. We need help with our image, mostly because we're the two mics.
Beyond help.
Your image, your half of our image, and your image is dreadful. You have a dreadful image to the general public and to our followers and to our listeners.
By the way, can I mention that we're getting edging closer to the release of our Edinburgh live show?
Yes, we are.
We've got it now in a podcast form, so we hope to have some news a bit later on this week about where you can get your hands on that.
Yeah, that will be as a podcast, which you can listen to, but I think it's okay to say, isn't it, that we hope that the Christmas video this year, which should be out at the start of October...
Well, I don't know about that. Maybe towards the end of October.
No, we want it much sooner than that.
Well, we'll try and get it out for the start of October.
Much sooner than that. No. I've been talking to the production company.
Yeah, so have I.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but you don't talk the same language as me.
No, I talk sense.
And that's going to be Adventures in Edinburgh, which of course taking the 3 shows that we did there at the Edinburgh Festival, all sold out and met very, very enthusiastically and widely appreciated.
Indeed, yes. Dom says this, was Porky bladderated the other night? He started on Liam Gallagher again. Hashtag death wish.
No, I wasn't actually. And actually, that wasn't an attack on Liam Gallagher at all. It was a response to somebody, and I deliberately... misspelled Liam Gallagher's handle so that it didn't look as though I was re-entering into the fray. No, seriously.
What did it say? You can't remember, can you?
Yes, I can. I can. What happened was his brother Noel Gallagher had come in here, hadn't he? And been on the show here, right?
He was on the Sports Bar, yeah.
He was on the Sports Bar, that's right, yeah. And somebody said, did you have a chat with, and, you know, and I didn't actually, not for any particular reason, we just didn't coincide. And so, I said something like, saw your brother, how you doing? Or something like that, I can't remember now. But anyway.
Well, I'm sure you weren't insulting to him, as you had been in
the
past.
No, in no way. And as I say, I spelt his handle wrong so that I didn't want to get involved in a late night spat. He probably would not have responded anyway.
Right.
It was only the one-off thing. But anyway,
well,
not a problem there.
Running scared from that's the main thing.
No, of course not, no. Now, I need to tell you how I've spent a lot of my day.
Oh, go on then.
Chasing up...
Paperwork.
No, chasing up boxes of T-shirts with your face on it.
And yours.
And mine,
Two Mike's T-shirts.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I've got a new batch.
Yeah, that's right, which you sent astray because you put the wrong address on them.
I didn't put the address on them.
You did. I was chasing them all day today. They went to the post office. They went back to the distributor.
Nothing to do with me.
Anyway, due to your incompetence,
I have no involvement in the ordering of the T-shirt.
I think you instructed the person who manufactures and sends them out.
The address that they're supposed to go to, I don't even know. You're the only one that knows it.
Yeah, well,
so you must have given it out wrong.
No, rubbish. Don't mean rubbish. Anyway, look, enough of that because what the audience really want to talk about.
Enough of that. Yeah, how about this?
Are the issues worldwide?
Fight Nigeria says this. Obama fell while going upstage during the 2008 campaign in Tampa, Florida. Well, he may have done. I think I remember that was a kind of a trip. It's very different from a fall. When Bob Dole fell off the stage, he went straight down.
When
Hillary Clinton collapsed yesterday or the day before, she was on her knees, in front of this car that she was trying to get into.
That's right.
Tripping up the steps is not really quite the same.
No, it's not. Who was the one-term president who couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time?
That was Gerald Ford.
He fell down the aeroplane stairs, didn't he?
I think he did, yeah. Well, he kind of just became the president, didn't he? Because Richard Nixon had to resign, even though he was not a crook.
Yes, that's right.
Now, what about your other hero, Gary Neville? He's been talking to talkSPORT, right? Yeah. And we'll be hearing more from him in the coming few days.
That's right.
But he's on the back pages this morning saying, I may never coach again, as you said earlier, but he's blasting the FA and saying that he was chucked overboard. And he says he'd rather spend the rest of his time building a hotel chain.
Oh, well, I don't know what he means by chucked overboard by the FA.
Well, he says this, the FA and Roy Hodgson invested in me for 4 years and I'm the most experienced I've ever been, yet you get chucked overboard. I think he's presumably now saying that Sam Allardyce and the new regime have no time for him.
Well, I don't know why he's blaming the FA, because that is purely a one-man decision by Sam Allardyce. It must be. Sam Allardyce picks and chooses his coaching staff, and so if Sam Allardyce has chosen not to retain Gary Neville as part of the coaching staff, I think that's something that is individualistic.
Well, he's blaming the FA.
Well, OK, well, the FA employed Sam Allardyce, but I mean, for instance, we do know how single-minded Sam Allardyce has been, because the first thing he did when he got into the job was to tell the FA to cancel the friendly that they wanted to put on at Wembley to raise revenues a week ahead of the game out in
Slovakia.
Slovakia, that's right, yeah. So I think Sam is running, a very strong and disciplined office, i.e. a one-man office of his, and I think he chooses his own people. Most coaches, when they come into a new job, bring their own people with them, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they like to have their right-hand man.
Because it doesn't work any other way, does it?
No, it doesn't, no.
I mean, it's the same in newspapers, the same in politics. I mean, that's why Theresa May got rid of all those people when she became the Prime Minister. Kicked them out of the Cabinet, and that's why, similarly, any job you ever have, if you're at the top of the tree, you surround yourself with people that you trust.
Well, do you know what a lot of people do? A lot of people, to make themselves look better, surround themselves with half-bakes, so that, if they've got no confidence in themselves, then the idea is to appoint a bunch of deputies who are
won't do anything.
Well, and who are twice as bad as you are anyway.
Right.
I remember a guy...
It's not always easy to find people who are more stupid than some of the people we've worked for.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree. But, I mean, for instance, there was a guy at the Express called Leith McGrandle.
You don't have to give his name away.
No, I don't mind giving his name away.
I remember him, Scottish guy, right?
Yeah, Scottish guy, but terribly well read.
Did he not end up at the Mail?
He might have done. I'm pretty sure he's dead now. If he's not dead, then he's certainly senile or something like that. Or he might not be senile.
He might not be.
He might be alive. And non-senile.
But his lawyers.
But exactly. But anyway, the point of the story is that he was inherited by Nicholas, Sir Nick Lloyd, our friend and former editor, who was a very competent man.
Yes.
But he suddenly found out that Leith was his deputy because the previous editor, who spent most of his time intoxicated to the point of insensibility, appointed Leith.
In the traditional manner.
Because Leith was just a raving idiot. Leith had been the city editor of a number of papers, right? But had no ability whatsoever to do the overall job of editing a whole newspaper. He only ever knew anything about business and money, and he didn't know much about that. But he would, he would seriously, and he spoke very well. So
it's amazing how many of these people actually got on very far, though.
It's unbelievable.
And much of it was due to the fact that they very barely spoke at all.
No, he didn't say anything. No,
a bit like these managers, like sort of, you think, he doesn't say much. He must be very intelligent.
That's right. So anyway, so Nick goes off on his first holiday when Leith McGrandle's his deputy left in charge, and McGrandle comes walking out of the editor's office and says, "Right, everybody," because he spoke like that, he was terribly well spoken. He spent most of his day in the Wigan Pen Club, whining and dining in Fleet Street.
Up by the law courts.
Up by the Strand, whining and dining, the, what are they called, the bigwigs of business. The
CEOs and all that.
CEOs and all that kind of stuff. So, right, everybody, now that I'm in charge, we will take great care of our departmental budgets. And then he stopped thumping the table and saying, "And if I say that they're being exceeded, there will be blood on the carpet."
Oh, yeah.
Although we didn't have any carpet, it was such a manky office, it's just like Lilo and all that kind of stuff, But anyway, so he'd go around making these fantastic protestations. Then he'd send out a memo to every member of the board. "I want you to know I have demanded," because they love budgets to be in line. They hated budgets to be. So he's trying to make out that while Nick Lloyd was the editor, he wasn't that keen on budgets, but Leith was. But anyway, everybody lost respect for him.
Curry favour.
Oh, he was a complete clown. I mean, just a complete figure of fun. He didn't know like what EastEnders was and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one day he's leaning over the backbench art desk and trying to discuss the front page, which again he didn't know anything about. And he wore these pinstripe suits all the time, like a city
3-piece suits.
Yeah, 3-piece suits, like a man who worked in the city would. The only thing missing was a rolled up umbrella and a bowler hat. But he was leaning over the art desk, and the news desk was right behind him, and all of a sudden his trousers started coming apart. At the seam,
right down the middle.
Right down the middle of right down the middle of his Aris, so to speak. His trousers are going apart, and he had.
Well, he overdone the claret at lunchtime.
I don't know whether he'd overdone the claret or whether he just put on weight or his suit was about 10 years old or something. Started coming apart to reveal he had white and red spotted underpants on.
Oh dear! Polka dots.
Polka dots. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, after that, I mean, he could never be taken seriously again.
Oh, embarrassing.
I think it lasted about 2 weeks after that.
I bet he absolutely did. Now, we've got lots more to do. I'm just reading the front page of the Times this morning, where it says that David Cameron had not spoken to Theresa May since she became Prime Minister until today, when he rang her up to say that he was going to resign.
Really?
Isn't that amazing? Tells you an awful lot about the inner workings of the old Tory party, doesn't it? Once you're gone, you're gone.
Yeah, there's all sorts of speculation that, he did it to torpedo her grammar school announcement and all that kind of stuff. Because, of course, him being a Liberal didn't want anything to do with grammar schools.
No, of course
It's all right for him to go to Eton.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Should any children be allowed to go to grammar schools?
That's ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely mad. Now, we're going to talk about Great British Bake Off as well. We've got listography coming up. We've already had some good suggestions.
Yeah.
But, keep them coming. Hashtag listography at the 2 mics on Twitter, of course. Going up next, though, going to talk a bit more Everton with Adrian Heath. Sorry? You make him play that?
I didn't make him play it. We always play it when we're talking about Everton. It's such a distinctive theme tune.
Well, it's a theme tune for Watford as well. And of course, it used to be the Zcast.
Yeah,
well, there we are. We've got Adrian Heath, though. We haven't spoken to Adrian for a very, very long time. Former Everton player, former Stoke player as well. We might as well ask him a bit about Mr. Hughes. Things are not going well there. Adrian, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
How are we doing, fellas?
Yeah, very
well indeed, mate. Very well indeed after that result last night. Very heartening, Adrian. Very heartening.
Yeah, it's been a great start. When you consider that Romelu Lukaku hasn't scored, so we've had a good start. Yeah. If we can keep him fit and keep him going the way he is now, I love the decision. He made the decision early. Make a change, Ross Barkley. Let's do something. Yeah. Very positive.
Yeah.
And
what difference
we spoke about it before, Mike, didn't we?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Adrian, when you saw that Deulofeu was coming on, I mean, how did that change the way that they then played? What exactly was the difference?
Well, I just think I like the fact that he's being positive and thinking, well, this isn't working. We're not keeping the ball. We're not moving the ball quick enough. We probably need a little bit more injection of pace in the wider areas. And at the end of the day, it could have been a lot more, couldn't it? It could have ended up 5 or 6. But I just think it was a real demonstration of that. He's not taking any messing about. He wants to be successful, and he's going to change it early, which was great to see.
Well, I think it was a very, very brave decision, Adrian, because, Ross Barkley's supposed to be the rising young star of Everton and England. Now, England have dropped him. Now, a lot of managers would have gone the other way and thought, no, I can't drop Ross tonight. That will finish him off after being dropped by England. But Koeman was completely opposite. He's already said to Ross Barkley, look, only you can get yourself your England place back, so start working on it. And the best way to work on it is to start showing me what you can do. And by half-time, when Barkley hadn't responded, he was absolutely ruthless.
Yeah, I think the other one as well for me, Mike, if you look at it, I'm listening to people, he looks as though Rossi's dropped some weight. I saw Kevin Morales saying that he's dropped a lot of weight. Yeah. I think he's meant no business, no nonsense. He's gone in there and he's sort of put people on the back foot a little bit. And I think, obviously one or two of the things that people heard that it was probably not that heavy in terms of the workload under Roberto, but this guy's come in and he's certainly made an impact. And I think it's been a really good start. And I don't want to get too carried away, Mike, here, but I honestly think that if Everton can keep everybody fit and bring one or two in the next window, I think they could be a big surprise this year. I think they can keep this position. I really do.
Well, the next 3 games in the Premier League, home to Middlesbrough, then they've got a cup match against Norwich, then away to Bournemouth, and then home to Crystal Palace. So, I mean, you would expect 9 points out of that at this point, wouldn't you?
I think so. And,
You'd like
let
to.
me tell you, once you get a good start and get some momentum going, and you know what Goodison's like when it's full, like, it's a difficult place to go and play. Yeah. If they can keep this going now and get, as you say, these next 3 games, I think are going to be crucial. Yeah. If they could be second or even conceivably be top of the league in a few weeks' time. Yes. It's been an incredible start.
Yeah, it has been an incredible start. The only problem is, I love attaining all these points, but the fixture list's been very, very kind to us, Adrian, in the first third of the season, because we only played Spurs on the opening day. Every other club we played so far is below halfway, and 2 of them are already in the relegation zone. But look, I'll take it. If, as you quite rightly say, if we're playing less able teams early on and mounting up the points, and it's building confidence.
Exactly, and as I said, there's nowhere like Goodison. And once the supporters started to believe, you look at Leicester last year. How many people thought they were going to continue doing what they did?
Yes, indeed.
You look at once you get points on the board and you get a bit of belief, I tell you what, Goodison's not going to be an easy place to go and play.
No, I totally agree.
It's not, no. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as, the way you're seeing some of the other teams make it out at the moment, looking at Stoke, they've had a terrible start by contrast, haven't they? And things are not looking good for them.
Yeah, and it's what we just said there, that if you get that good start and get some momentum, the same can be said about when you're at the bottom. You start badly and all of a sudden, after 8-9 games, you're in the bottom 3. Hey, you've got it all on because, it's pretty unforgiving league. The Premier League is when you're playing with no confidence. The crowd are very apprehensive.
Yep.
So Stoke need to get a win on the board as soon as possible.
No, I totally agree. Now, how do you see the way the Premier League's working out at the moment, Adrian? Because, of course, the great tussle the weekend just gone was Jose versus Pep Guardiola, and the general opinion, certainly over in this country, is Pep Guardiola had a little bit of class above that of Jose Mourinho in the team he put out.
Yeah, I think so, and I think they were the first 40 minutes. I thought they were outstanding, Manchester City. And I think the thing for me is, which is worrying for the rest of the Premier League. He's only been with this group of players now for what, 2 or 3 months?
Yep.
If you go back to pre-season, I don't know what they're going to be like when they get another 2 or 3 months of working there. I've spoke to some of the people within the club. They think this fella is incredible. And I thought that City threw a marker down. And by the way, no Aguero at the weekend as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So they've got him to come back. They've got company to come back.
Yes.
They've got loads of more players to come back. They've got the financial. So I think it was a day for the Premier League to realise that Man City are the real deal.
Yeah.
I think Liverpool have started brightly. They look as though they can score goals on. Very, very dangerous on the counter-attack. Chelsea have done well under Conte. So I think it's going to be a really fascinating season. I think there's so many twists and turns that might come, but on what I've seen so far, I can't see anybody, taking Man City on if they can keep all their best players fit.
And a lot of people were saying after that game as well that maybe this is the guy who's going to bring them sort of something in the Champions League, which they've not been able to do so far because of the way they played.
Yeah, I think also, obviously that you look at his record. He's won it twice. Now, obviously, there's a little question mark with the 3 years at Bayern Munich. He didn't win the Champions League, but I think I look at it this year. I don't think that there's an outstanding team. Look, PSG haven't started well. Barcelona got beat at the weekend by Alaves.
Yeah,
I think it could be one of them years where maybe an English team might have a chance this year. I really do.
Well, we'd hope so. Because I wonder whether, with the arrival of Pogba at Manchester United, we've turned that corner now, where the best players at their peak are now looking towards the Premier League.
He didn't look much good at the weekend, though, did he?
No, he didn't. I agree, he didn't. No, but I mean, in the past stage, and the elite players in Europe only ever seem to come to England in the twilight of their career.
Yeah, and obviously there's 2 outstanding players at the moment. Ronaldo plays for Real Madrid, and obviously Messi at Barca. So you're not going to get them. But the good thing is now, and I say that the good thing is, the bottom line is, guys, no matter how we dress it up, there's so much money now in the Premier League. We're going to get the best players.
Yeah, I hope so.
The next batch of great players, I think, will come to the Premier League just because of the sheer money that they're going to be offered.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure you're right. You're just talking about Goodison there, Adrian, and there's been a bit of a rumble in this country about West Ham, because West Ham have moved to their new stadium and it simply isn't working out for them. And somebody pointed out to me that Arsenal have never won a thing of consequence. They've won the FA Cup, obviously, since they moved to their stadium. I mean, we shouldn't be too quick about upping sticks and moving away from Goodison unless we've got something really nice to go to, should we?
I think so. For me personally, Mike, and I know I'm biased because I had my best days there, but there's nothing quite like Goodison Park when it's full. Yeah. Nothing. Yeah. There's nowhere like it in the country. And I would be sad to see him go, but the bottom line again is that, the financially with the corporate hospitality that they can generate with these new stadiums, inevitably, I would think, Mike, at some stage they're going to have to do it.
Well, I wonder if they can rebuild it, because I don't know if you saw all the pictures over the weekend of the magnificent new stand at Anfield, but it looks colossus, you know what I mean? And they were always going to move. They had a plan for a new ground, but they managed to turn it round and stay where they are. I wish Everton could do that.
I think so, and I think there's a groundswell of opinion that thinks the same. I remember a few years ago the people who built Twickenham, I think I'm right in saying that they thought you could build a 60,000-seater stadium where Everton is on the footprint that they have now. Yeah. So, obviously, I think the fact that it's, if you look at it now, it does look old. It does look outdated, but for me, it's still a magnificent place. And I just hope I hope they can stay there. And if they can, and if they need to do something, let's see if we can as you say, like Liverpool are doing. Let's see if we can do something with the stadium.
Sure.
Talking about Sunderland as well. I mean, Mike was saying earlier, Adrian, that he thought David Moyes had a bit of a haunted look about him. He's got an old mate of yours on his bench with him, Paul Bracewell.
That's right.
What do you think David Moyes is going to be able to do up there, if anything?
Oh, well, on the evidence of tonight and with that team, they're gonna struggle this year. It's going to be tough. And I don't know. It seems strange tonight as well. The atmosphere. You know, if you think of them games at the back end of last season when Sam Allardyce had them going.
That's right.
The place was packed and everybody, the atmosphere was electric. It seemed a bit subdued tonight. And you know, I mean, obviously, I worked up there for a few years with Reedy, and when that place is, you know, full and the people are behind the team, it's an intimidating place. But in the reverse, it can be a very difficult place to play if things aren't going well. And you know, I look at them tonight and I thought, I'm not so sure whether, you know, if God forbid, if Jermaine Defoe was to get injured, I don't know how they'd do, because he looks like the only one who can score a goal for them.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know, the thing about, you worked up there, Inchy, so you know what I'm saying here. That you have to work doubly hard at Sunderland to get the credibility, because they're such an unfashionable club in an unfashionable part of the world, if you know what I mean.
Well, they don't get the publicity that everybody else gets. You know,
that's what I mean.
Out on a limb up there. Yeah. But you know, I remember them days where we had a full house nearly every game for about 4 or 5 years.
Well, I'm not surprised, because you were finishing 6th in the Premier League in those days.
Yeah, and it was, as I say, it was a really intimidating place to go.
Yeah.
But at this moment in time, you know, I look at the team today, and I looked at the performance today. It's going to be a really, I think, tough. And David Moyes has probably even said it himself. They're looking at a relegation.
No, he has.
They're looking at a relegation season.
Yes, he has.
If you were to offer them finishing 4th from bottom now, I think they'd take it. They'd snap your hand off.
Oh, I think they would. I think they absolutely would. Well, Adrian, lovely to talk to you again. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. What are you up to at the moment?
Well, I'm waiting for the next one. I've had a couple of interviews for a couple of jobs over here, so hopefully be back in work in the near future, guys.
Okay. It'll be great. It'll be great to see you back in the game. And Jim, once again, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. The voice of authority from the other side of the world. Love it. Love it every time you're on the show.
It's the other side of the Atlantic. We'll go to the other side of the world later, because we're going to talk to Sandra Lee about one or two things, including the fact that they think they might have found Amelia Earhart's plane, or that they think that her final sort of days, she didn't die in the crash.
No.
That she actually lived as a sort of
Robinson Crusoe type
figure. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Sandra Lee's coming up in a little while. Don't forget listography as well. Hashtag it listography. Tweet us at the 2 mics. And, of course, we'll pick a subject a little bit later on. This is talkSPORT. This is talkSPORT. We are the 2 mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. We're talking about politicians falling over earlier in the hour. And somebody called FC has sent us a reminder that Sepp Blatter, of course, fell over when he was at one of those big FIFA meetings. Do you remember?
Yeah, he did. That's right.
That on YouTube. He says that was one of his favourites.
Yes.
Yes. A lot of people have been. Did you see old Platini, by the way?
Yeah.
He's going to be allowed to address some conference.
I know,
from something ridiculously humane grounds.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's not like he's suffering. It looks all right to me.
No, he looks all right to me as well. And he's got a few bob, hasn't he, from, a long career in football administration.
Well, you could call it that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we'll just call it that for now.
Yeah, we should, absolutely right. Did you like that line in the news, by the way, about David Cameron? Told Tim Fallon, that guy from the Lib Dems, who's completely and utterly ineffectual, saying that he'd probably be best remembered for accidentally taking Britain out of the European Union, which is probably right.
Well,
he didn't mean to.
Or he might be remembered for leaving his daughter in the pub at Sunday lunchtime.
Yes.
Or he might be remembered for, getting on a sledge and driving around with huskies in the Arctic Circle. Or he might be remembered for the fact that, he introduced policies which were so against the sort of will of his party, but decided that because he was going to be a Liberal Prime Minister, dressed in sort of Tory clothes, he'd kind of get on with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, we talked about West Ham in the, in a few moments ago, and
we did it. We had a show here on Sunday afternoon. Where we talked a little bit about it, didn't we?
Yeah, but
it's still very fresh in everybody's mind. It's still going on though, the debate. Isn't it?
Well, the situation's changed. There's now an allegation has emerged, and I think it's been corroborated that a director from West Ham was spat at in the director's box.
Oh, is that right?
There was so much turmoil going on the ground, and I think it's been corroborated because the director concerned has been named as Karen Brady.
Oh, really?
Yeah. and that's a shocking situation.
That is terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been an awful lot of West Ham fans talking on talkSPORT over the last sort of 48 hours.
Well, we brought a few on the other night.
We had a couple on Sunday afternoon, but certainly even yesterday, still people ringing up and saying, I took my kids there for the first time. They were really excited, had to leave. They were all in tears half an hour before the end of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a terrible situation.
Well, the thing is, how long does it take for a situation which seems like paradise to turn into hell?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying this is that, West Ham and the people who run it, who've done a brilliant job. I keep saying that, it was the most brilliant business deal probably ever done in football.
It's very good for them.
Very good for them, and they're very proud of it. And obviously they were swelling up their feathers like peacocks and saying, come and look at our model stadium.
Yeah.
Now I'm afraid a few of the cracks are showing. And now the desire to sort of pinpoint the trouble seems to have overcome the desire to boast about the station.
Yes.
And so you've got a situation here where, West Ham were never really making it that clear that, look, we're only tenants, you know what I mean? I mean, it was their new stadium and they had it redesigned to their needs, and that's fine. But now it's a kind of, well, we're only tenants and the owners have got to sort all this out.
But surely, I mean, as much as the stewarding might be down to the people that run the stadium,
yes,
we're already hearing stories that, the way the stadium is designed, one, it makes it very difficult to steward.
Yeah.
Two, it makes it very difficult to kind of patrol the crowds outside on the way into the place because it's not designed with football in mind.
No, that's right. The issue about the stewarding is that you're better off having policemen because policemen have a greater sense of authority than stewards for obvious reasons.
But would West Ham have to pay for that, though?
No, the taxpayer would pay for it. This is the point. Right. The former London Development Corporation or whatever they were called, LDD, LLDC, they now foot the bill for the maintenance of the station. West Ham are just the tenants. That's the point. And remember the amazing details that even the corner flags are paid for by the owner, the landlord, and West Ham are simply going there and renting it apparently 80 days a year or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's the situation. So
I heard a couple of other people saying as well that because of the relatively cheap cost of the tickets, it's attracting the wrong kind of fans. Now I don't know why that would be the case, but seemingly lots of people who West Ham fans who are regulars haven't seen before have sort of started returning, i.e. possibly the hooligan element.
Well, I'm not sure about the hooligan element. I mean, the fighting that's erupted at the stadium so far is all about those who stand and those who don't stand. And that was explained to us the other night about that fan who called in and said, well, because the drop is so shallow, because it was designed for athletics, where you don't need high-stepped sort of tiers. Yeah. If somebody stands up, it blocks the view of the 6 rows behind and all this kind of stuff, you know. But anyway, look, they'll have to get it sorted out because obviously it's going to be their home for the next century or whatever, and it's probably teething problems, I would imagine.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope they sort it out. But they're going to have to really do some more segregation, and they're going to have to do some more serious thinking about security and all the rest of it. Yeah. Funnily enough, just as a side issue to that, I was looking at a story earlier on today about the number of pickpocketing incidents that happen at various train stations in London, right?
Train stations?
Tube stations.
Tube stations.
And Stratford, which is where the stadium is the fifth most likely place where you're going to get pickpocketed.
Is that right?
107 incidents. The worst is King's Cross.
Have you ever been pickpocketed?
Do you know, I haven't, but I remember there was a time, it was a couple of years ago, and I came back from doing this show, and it was 6 a.m.
Yes.
And I was standing at a bus stop, and these two guys on bikes tried to steal my phone.
Yeah, did you chase them off?
No, I just kind of managed to hold on to it. Because they were on bikes, they didn't actually stop.
Like push bikes? Or...
Yeah, they were on push bikes. And one came, first they came sort of towards me on the pavement, and I didn't really think too much about it. And then I kind of was vaguely aware of the fact that they'd stopped a bit further up behind me. And then they came back, and then suddenly I was aware of a skid sound behind me. So I turned around, and I had the phone in my hand to look at this guy who was behind me. And the other one went on the other side and tried to grab the phone.
I see.
Out of my hand, but I just didn't let go of it.
Blimey, that was...
I issued a few epithets to them.
That's right, yeah.
And they didn't come back.
That was quick thinking and quick reaction. Well done.
I don't think I've ever actually been pickpocketed, like as I've been walking along and not realising.
I think anybody gets pickpocketed must be a bit simple.
Why?
Well, because, if I'm in a crowd or something, then I deliberately... hold my coat together so that nobody can get their hands in my inside pockets.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're in a big crowd of people and suddenly somebody bumps into you, you might not be aware of it.
Well, I am aware. I'm aware of these things. Maybe. I
think you should have I said you were being compassionate in the first hour. I'll take it all back now.
No.
People have been pickpocketed, the victims.
No. I think they're not thinking properly because maybe. I mean, it's a horrible word to use because I've heard people use this who clearly do not fit the label. But maybe we are a bit more streetwise. because we have, prowled the mean streets of Belfast and Croatia and Libya and
New York.
New
as well.
York.
I mean,
exactly,
a guy tried to mug me in New York once. I told you that story. I'd been out with, funnily enough, a guy called Richard Ellis, who you might remember,
Richard,
who was working for the Sunday Times at the time. It was one of those things. He called me at 11:30 at night, as people used to do in those days.
That's right.
Having just landed at Kennedy, and he said, "I'm just coming into town for a few days. You fancy a drink?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Yeah, okay then." So we went out for a drink to one of my local bars around Bank Cafe or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
About midnight.
Yeah.
And because you can,
That's right.
Stay there till about 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And for some stupid reason, I then decided it'd be a good time to go and get some money. So I went to this bank and took some money out. And as I was walking down like 2 streets from my house, suddenly this guy jumped on my back.
Yeah.
And I was aware of this, I wasn't very bladderated. No. I was a little bit bladderated.
Yeah.
But his head was like over my right shoulder. He was like
horrendous.
Piggybacking on top of me, right?
Yeah.
And he's obviously trying to push me over.
Yes.
But because I was quite large, he wasn't able to do that. So I just started punching him.
You still are quite large, yeah.
Yeah, still am, yeah.
So you started punching his face?
I just started punching his face on my shoulder,
That's
right?
excellent.
Just bang, until he fell off.
Yeah.
And then I was then aware of another guy who was standing next to him.
Right.
This guy was now on the ground. I started kicking him.
Yeah, good.
And behaving like a maniac.
Good.
And going, yeah, you want some more of this? Do you want it? Do you want some more?
Yeah.
And I pointed to the other guy and said, you're going to be next. You're going to get it next. And then he ran off.
Wow.
And I just went home. It was great.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's... well, when we were in Cape Town on one occasion, it wasn't for the World Cup, it was the 6 months before when they did the draw.
Oh, yeah.
We were staying in a hotel at the end of a road, which was a good end of the road, if you see what I mean.
Because you were told not to go out in the dark.
You're told all that kind of stuff, yeah. Anyway, funny enough, I needed some money.
Yeah.
And I know there was a hole in the wall about 150 yards away, up the road, going
in the
back
bad
into
part.
town. Yeah, not down towards the water, which was the good part. And so I just went out and did it. And when I got back, one of the security guards at the hotel said, "Where have you been?" And I told him. He said, "I'm amazed you got back." I said, "I'm literally amazed." Yeah. And do you know what? As I was coming back,
and did you not notice any sort of undesirable characters?
Well, funny enough, on the way up there, I was lucky. I didn't. And by the way, where the hole in the wall machine was in an entrance. You had to get, like
through a door.
Through a door and in a little room, which was perfect for mugging. You know what I mean? Right. Because somebody could walk past you in there.
Did you not have to slip the card into the thing to get in there, though? You know how normally...
No, you didn't actually. The door was just open, yeah. Right. But coming back, it said, these couple of guys came across the road, and I'm not joking, they were zombies. Their eyes had completely gone.
Really?
They looked like Michael Jackson at the end of the Thriller video.
Right.
No, their eyes were completely red and wild, and their hair was wild, and they literally foaming
at the mouth.
Foaming at the mouth or dribbling at the mouth, anyway, and all that. And I thought, this is a bit odd. But apparently, these are killers. Right. These are people who are so out of their mind.
Well, they don't mess around in South Africa.
No, exactly. They killed you. But no, I totally agree. That's But I still think that... I remember Ken Lennox, famous photographer, came over to New York once. It was some job he was doing or something like that. And he told me that the last time he was there, he was with a mate, another photographer, an English photographer, who got mugged. Yeah. And he lost everything. It
used to happen a lot in the 80s, particularly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it was quite a dangerous place for you.
Absolutely. And they were very open about it in those days, you know what I mean? Yeah. They would stop you on the street and say, you've got two choices, buddy. You give me your wallet, you give me your money, or I stab you, you know, and I knife you. What the expression is?
Cut you.
I cut you, that's right, I cut you. So what are you going to do? Yeah.
Interesting New York accent, that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's where it was, but not a pleasant experience at all.
I was stopped by 2 hookers the last time I was there, actually, and I was on my way back to my sister's flat.
Right.
Because I always used to hang around on sort of 3rd Avenue, like 27th, 28th.
What were you doing hanging around on 3rd Avenue?
Well, I was walking home. I'd been out with my daughter, and I was walking back, and these 2 women stopped me.
Yes.
And they started kind of, pawing me, and I thought, and that was one point where I thought, I might have been pickpocketed here, because when I got away from them, I was kind of checking my wallet.
Yeah, that's right,
because they were very close.
Right.
And
they hadn't taken anything?
They didn't take anything.
They were literally just looking for business.
They were literally looking for business,
yeah. In
a way which was quite direct,
probably saw it on your face.
They probably did, yeah. But managed to get...
Did they grab certain parts of your anatomy?
They did, yeah.
No.
Yeah, I told them I wouldn't be used to them because I had a lot to drink.
Yeah,
and they said, well, we're not sure if that's the case.
Disgusting
behaviour. Terrible, absolutely Very embarrassing.
And I bet you weren't that quick at telling them to get lost, were you?
No, I was, because I was worried
they were mauling you.
No, I was worried they were going to
normally
rob
like
me.
that sort of thing.
No, well, yeah, but not for prostitutes. Thank you very much.
You're not usually that choosy, pal.
Well, you may say that, but you'd be entirely wrong. This is talkSPORT. We still haven't talked about the British Bake Off. Do you mind if we talk about that next?
Oh, I think we should.
Because it's been sold off. The BBC have lost it, and it's coming up right here on talkSPORT.
Yes.
Recognise that piece of music?
No.
Apparently that's the theme of the Great British Bake Off.
Is it? Well, I've never seen it, actually.
How come you've never seen it? I mean, your capacity as the TV reviewer of talkSPORT with Porky Vision, I mean, it is the biggest audience grabber of all time, right?
Well, I accept that.
15 million people watched the final last year.
Yeah, I know. That's an incredible figure in this day and age.
It really is, yeah. I mean, in the old days when they would get that kind of figure for
Morecambe and Wise,
the
Christmas show.
Yeah, or for even for some of the soap operas that were up around 12, 13,
yeah,
the big sort of mega episodes,
yeah.
you know. But that is an incredible amount. And I tell you what, I was watching the 6 o'clock news tonight, bizarrely, and in the middle of it, you know, that woman, what's her name, who does the antiques show as well. You know, the newsreader.
Fiona,
yeah, that's right.
Fiona Bruce.
Yeah. In the midst of the show, she suddenly announced that they had some breaking news, and you thought, the way they did it, you'd think the Queen had just died.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, they were so sort of shell shocked. They got this guy on who was the show business correspondent. Who came in and said, you know, we've just found out that the BBC will no longer be showing the Great British Bake Off.
Yes.
And they looked. I mean, it's literally like somebody had died.
Yeah,
they looked so upset, and I'm thinking. Yeah. Really? Is this you know, as big a piece of news as you want? But every front page has got it this morning. His son's got deserted on the front page, Doe on the front of the Star, Beeb loses Bake Off. Even the Telegraph, BBC's kitchen disaster as it loses Bake Off.
Daily Mail says crumbs. BBC loses Bake Off to Channel 4 in bust up over cash. Yeah,
but
cash
Channel
is usually
4,
the main motive.
I thought, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I thought Channel 4 was on the brink of collapse, right? I thought they had no money.
It's on the brink of collapse. It's on the brink of either being privatised or sold off or something, because it's a state-owned
well, maybe this is part of their
station.
Maybe this is part of their strategy, then, because apparently they're spending something like 75 million to nick it.
How much? 75?
75 million, according to the Mirror, yeah.
It says here, BBC have suffered a huge blow last night after the Great British Bake Off, the most watched show on television last year, was poached by Channel 4. In a remarkable coup that left the corporation stunned, Channel 4 announced it had secured the rights to the show from next year.
Yeah, because the trouble is, of course, like most big successful shows on British television, it's not produced by the TV company. No. It's produced by this outside production company.
They're called Love
Productions.
That's
and
right,
in the same way that they've now lost the Top Gear, obviously, to Amazon. Now they lost The Voice, which apparently is going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I guess the cuts at the BBC are finally being felt.
Yeah. Is that Voice, by the way, is that anything like the X Factor? Because you know, so do they only take singers who've got emotional problems and all this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, I can't speak about that because I don't watch it very often.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's also going to be shown on ITV, so I presume they think it's different. It's different enough.
Yeah, sure.
You know, for them to actually have it over there. No, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's quite as corny as the X Factor. You know, they tend to have people in for their singing.
I can't watch the X Factor anymore because I've only ever seen it for 5 minutes. And as I said to you, this woman, it's nothing to do with her singing. The fact, I was in an abusive relationship, and then they had a 10-minute conversation about the relationship, and then Nicole Scherzinger, who I think is one of the most beautiful women in the world, said, "Sing your heart out, sweetie." I mean, you know, it's unbelievable.
But I mean, that's what Cal does, isn't it? I mean, he has to change the way that things are done every year. Otherwise it gets boring and dull.
That's right.
So now they have to make sure that whoever they've picked has got some great, backstory.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Interested in,
Now listen, I just said to you earlier, didn't I? I said, old David Cameron, he didn't, he just was being Prime Minister a bit of a laugh, you know. He had nothing else to do in life, very wealthy, he'd succeeded in his education, thought that'd be a good idea. But that's not the way that some of the papers are interpreting it. Our old friend Richard Kay, who's the editor-at-large in the Daily Mail, and with whom I worked with for many years on the road, before he became the diary.
A very civilised man.
A lovely man, Richard, lovely guy. Yeah. Fulham fan. Last time I saw him was in the boardroom at Fulham.
Had some very good sources within the late Princess Diana camp as well.
Oh, very much so, yeah. I saw him in the Fulham boardroom with Mohammed Al-Fayed when Mr. Al-Fayed owned the club, yeah. Right. But his piece is headlined, "He's angry, he's vengeful, and he's broken by the loss of power." next stop for Dave and Samantha could be New York.
Oh, really?
He says he can't handle the loss of power.
Yeah.
You know,
well, people do say that. I remember Piers Morgan telling me that, you know, the day after he got fired from the Mirror, before he sort of his TV career took off and he wrote his book and everything else.
Yeah.
He said he just sat in his flat, and at the time he was being doorstepped, you know, constantly by you know, other journalists and TV crews and all the rest of it.
That's right.
And he had no idea what to do. He just sat there for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And eventually worked out that he'd have to go and post a couple of letters or send some cards out.
Yeah.
Didn't know where the post office was. Didn't know what the cost of a stamp was.
No.
And so, because, you know, when you're in those kind of jobs, everybody does everything for you.
Well, I once spoke to an editor who was kind of removed, but sort of compassionately, you know, within the organisation, he was given another role somewhere else. Yeah. But he wasn't the editor of the paper anymore. Yeah. And he literally said to me, the following morning, the phone just stopped ringing.
Yeah, that's right.
It just stopped ringing.
Well, that happened to me. I mean, when I got fired by the Express, and you know, the phone was always ringing, basically all the time.
That's right, yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me. Suddenly, I wasn't getting phoned by anyone.
And the point is, it's so difficult to come to terms with it because we all think that, you know, obviously you have a position of power and therefore people are attracted to you. Yeah. But actually, through that position of power, they get to realise what a great guy you are. Yeah. And what a nice chap you are.
Well, in my case,
exactly, and your riveting company and all that. Yeah. And by the way, you know, if you've suffered this loss of job, it doesn't bother me at all. As far as I'm concerned, we're now friends, and that friendship will last. Yeah. No, it doesn't. No. None of it does. None of it. It all disappears.
No, I think I got 2 friends from that time. That I used to work with.
It disappears over the hill. Believe me.
No, it does.
And you just ring somebody up and say, look, you know, just do us a favour.
And worse than not getting phoned is that when you call some of these people that you thought were your friends, they don't take the call.
You don't take the call. Or what about this? What about a former PA? And you think, oh, well, you know, she was very loyal to me, you know, for years and all that. Ring her up. Hello? Yes? What? You can't talk to me. Sorry. You ring me back. Thank you. Never rung back. Yeah. Never rung back. No. You know.
Well, because now they're PA to somebody else.
Yeah, well, that was in my newspaper days, by the way. I've never had a problem like that in radio.
No, of course.
It was just like that. It was just, you know, one minute you're there and the next minute you're not, and somebody else is.
Well, I remember going into, because when I was fired from the Express, I was literally in the middle of the edition.
Yes,
you know, it was about 6 o'clock on a Friday night. Yeah. And I was in the midst of doing the Friday night paper, which was a massive paper because it had all the TV stuff in it, the magazine and everything. Had to get it off early, and I got called into the managing editor's office, and it was when old what's-her-face was put in charge, Rosie
Boycott.
Yeah. And I sat down in this woman's office and she said, well, you know, as you know, Rosie's been having a sort of a look at all of the executive positions.
A review
of where everybody is, and I'm afraid that she's decided that there isn't a spot for you.
Yes.
And at that time, I was like assistant editor of the paper. And I said, what, you mean, despite the fact that I've been an assistant news editor, I've been foreign editor, I've been features editor, I've been night editor, I've run the entire production system here for the last 2 years, she can't find me a job, is that what you're telling me? Yeah. And she went, yeah. And I went, right, okay. And so my first question was, well, how much are you paying me? And she said, oh, well, we'll enter into a period of negotiation. I said, no, I'm not leaving the building until you tell me exactly how much you're giving me.
Exactly.
And then I said, and when do you want me to leave? And she went, now. I said, well, I'm in the middle of the edition. Yeah. You know, you don't want me to finish it off? Yeah. And she said, no, that's fine, you can leave now. Yeah.
And you said, I'm not until you tell me.
So I didn't, and I waited I was sat in her office for about 10 minutes. She went away, came back with a number on a piece of paper, showed it to me. I said, fine, well, that's a good place to start. But I remember going into the newsagents the following day down in Wiltshire, thinking they wouldn't have the Express because I hadn't been there to finish it off.
Exactly.
So, of course, it wouldn't be there.
But somebody else
And, of course, it was there.
Yeah, of course it was.
And you suddenly think, well, maybe I wasn't quite so indispensable as I thought.
Funny enough, I had a situation like that once where I got wind of the fact that I was about to get the boot.
Well, you normally have an idea, don't you?
Yeah. It's the smoke signals emanate from the offices of power, so to speak. And so I went in extra early. Now, do you remember when David Moyes knew that he was about to get the boot from Manchester United?
He did the same, didn't he?
He went there at 4:30 a.m.
Right.
And that's for two reasons.
He didn't take advice from you on this one, did he?
No, he didn't take advice from me, no. But he went there for 2 reasons. Firstly, to avoid the camera crews that were going to turn up at about 6 a.m. You know, they thought that'd be early enough. Yeah. And they'd heard all the rumours as well. So he got in even earlier than that. And I remember him saying he got up at 3:30 a.m. and he got changed and showered and all that. And he only lived 20 minutes away. Right. And he drove to it's not Carrington now, is it? The United.
I think it's still.
I think it is Carrington. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it used to be ced the Cliff. Sorry, it's now Carrington. Yeah. Of course it is. Yeah, and went in. But the second reason was he wanted to have a poke around and find out were there any clues as to how the demise came about, and which of course you do, and
well, you become slightly obsessed with it sometimes.
Well, I mean, you for one another reason want to know what went wrong and all that kind of stuff. But he needed solitude and time on his own in that office, which you don't get if you're going through a load of TV crews, and when you get in there, you're going to be confronted by the chief executive. Yeah. You've got no time. Right. He wanted to. As you quite rightly say, when they said to you, get out now, and they said to Piers Morgan, leave this building, but Piers didn't have time to pick up his coat or his mobile phone.
No, he had to call his PA to bring it down to him.
Yeah, exactly. He had to borrow somebody else's phone downstairs and ask them to bring it down. So he wanted time to sort out his office, David. And so, anyway, so on this occasion, I got in really early. And I mean, I used to start about 7:30 anyway. This morning, at 6:30.
Right.
And do you know what? This is this amazing thing. This was in Oxford Street, right? And I was working for an organisation that had offices in Oxford Street, and I got there deliberately early and thought there wouldn't be anybody about.
Right.
And as I was waiting for the lift, one other person came in, and I thought, hope that
was
person...
Was it a person that was maybe responsible for whatever it was that was going on?
No, I said, I was thinking to myself, I hope this is not a person involved in my business, because this is going to be embarrassing, because they might be a member of the assassination crew or something like that. Right. But do you know who it was? Because their offices were on floors above ours. It was Rowan Atkinson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you could have been fired by Mr. Bean.
Well, no, because he had nothing to do with it. But the offices for his agent were on a floor above the offices I was working in. It was amazing.
Oh, right.
And
did you speak to him?
Well, I just made pleasantries with him. I said, good morning. He said, good morning, how are you? I said, I'm fine, thanks. I said, early start. He said, yes, it's like these damn schedules and all this kind of stuff. He was perfectly pleasant,
Absolutely.
I see, by the way, that I read an interview with his daughter today. She's trying to break through into showbiz. I think she's 21.
Right.
And, talking about, the difficulties of being Rowan Atkinson's daughter and all this kind of stuff. But during the course of it, they said her father, who has a fortune of £100 million.
Yes.
I mean, did Mr. Bean really make £100 million?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's gone all over the world. There's a cartoon version of it which goes around all the time. I mean, it's incredibly successful, Plus, Blackadder was pretty well done as well.
Oh, Blackadder was brilliant.
And he had a writing credit on that, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think he did, And then, of course...
See the time, by the way.
It was old Johnny English. I thought it was quite a good film.
Johnny English is all right.
It got panned by a lot of people. But
Johnny English is all right.
I thought it was pretty good.
Absolutely right.
And all the other stuff he did. Yeah, amazing.
Bob is asking, why was Mike Graham fired from the Express? I'm sure it's a scintillating story. Let the listeners hear. It's not particularly scintillating. I got fired for not being a woman, basically.
That's a bit harsh.
Well, that's what I got. Yeah, I got fired for not being a woman. But I'll tell you more about that later on.
Indeed.
Coming up, that music can only herald one thing, and it is the return of Sandra Lee to this show. We haven't been able to talk to Sandra for a while because we've been on in different times, and the time zone thing hasn't quite worked. But she's back. Sandra, a very good morning to you.
G'day, chaps, and it's so lovely to be back. I've missed you.
Yes, well, we've missed you
as well.
We've missed you too. I mean, there were lots of opportunities where we thought, we should talk to Sandra about this, and then we realised, it would be our time during the day and your time in the middle of the night. So we're sorry for not being in touch, but fantastic to have you back on. Porky's become obsessed with a couple of stories. One is, which we'll talk about in a minute, the speed limits in the outback. And the other one, I don't know if you saw this one, about Amelia Earhart and the discovery that she might not have actually died when her plane crashed on some remote island near Fiji. And instead she might have lived like sort of Robinson Crusoe for a while.
Yes, I have seen that one, and unfortunately I have to say that it's not true, because that story was debunked about a year ago by some incredible scientific work by anthropologists who said that the bones on which they're relying for this story from this international historic aviation recovery group, that the information they're relying on has been debunked earlier. So
it's all a lot of old rubbish then. Well, Porky's assured me that this is a new discovery.
Yeah, I was told it was, Sandra. I was told that, the new revelations, her plane crashed on this tiny little island called Nicaragua. She was only 7 hours from landing in Australia, in Sydney, which was her final destination. So is this a well-known sort of legend that people repeatedly talk about in your country?
I think it is a legend, and it is always coming up in the media. I think people always, when there's an anniversary for her disappearance, they like to sort of bring out the old canard and see, if it flies again. But apparently, Archaeological Science is the magazine that published the new analysis of those bones, and it says quite categorically that no, she did not die there, and they think that it's possible that she crashed into the sea with her co-pilot Fred Noonan.
And that was it, and never seen again.
That's it.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, that, isn't it? We have our what's the name of that great band leader who disappeared over the channel?
Glenn Miller.
Glenn Miller. We've got our Glenn Miller. You've got your Amelia Earhart. Perhaps they're together in heaven.
Earhart.
Yeah.
It's Earhart, isn't it?
Earhart.
Didn't they make a movie of her story quite recently?
Probably. I don't know.
Where do you get this rubbish from?
Well, I go from my scientific journals.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well,
yeah.
You may be a bit out of date on this one.
Yeah, exactly.
We were talking earlier as well about Hillary Clinton, Sandra, because you know how whenever a politician's health is in question, life changes altogether for them, and America's become obsessed with it. But we were talking about other instances of people falling over and never really recovering. But Mike was saying John Howard fell over.
I'm sure, Sandra, that in his first ever election victory in the campaign, I was in Australia, and I'm sure I saw him fall off the stage, and I thought that's the end of him. But he went on to be Prime Minister 4 times, didn't he?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He did fall off the stage, and everybody, especially the lefty-lovey media, thought it was fantastic and that was going to be the end of him.
Yeah.
But he outstaged all of them, and he did win 4 elections to be the longest-running Prime Minister after Menzies.
Yeah.
So he did take a tumble, but it didn't hurt his career.
No.
So he's one of the few that wasn't hit by that. Talking of lefty-loveys, Porky also tells me that they've now reduced the speed limits on the roads in the outback, and he's outraged about it.
Well, the thing is, what I've got on this, Sandra, I'm outraged because we've had the conversation before about all these mad people who are closing down the bars in the centre of Sydney late at night and all this kind of stuff. But I'm told that, and this is in the Northern Territory, and I know that Australia is a huge country, so that'll be a long way away from where you are. But apparently, the restrictive speed limits are going to be put on roads in the Northern Territories because too many kangaroos are being killed. And, one sort of unwritten law in Australia is that when you're driving through the Northern Territories, going north-south, you can go actually as fast as you like. There are no speed restrictions, but there will be in future. And Porsche, the car manufacturers, have even said, but we use some of those roads to test our cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. And in fact, loads of automobile companies use those roads. There's about 300 kilometres of unrestricted speed limit roads in the Territory.
Right.
And since the change of government just very recently, the country Liberal Party got booted in an absolute landslide. And the Labor Party, which is the source of all evil, if you want to believe a lot of lefties, not lefties, the opposite side, they've decided to reintroduce a 130 kilometre-an-hour speed limit in that unrestricted speed zone area, which is about 81 miles per hour. And but the speed in that area has been going up and down for years. Depends on who's in government. The speed will be unrestricted, or then it comes back. And it's not about kangaroos. It's all of the Labor Party are saying it's based on the fact that we want to keep people safe. However, the curious thing about that is that when they impose those speed restrictions, there are more accidents.
Really? And why is that? Why are there more accidents if the people are driving at 80 miles an hour? Do we know?
No, they haven't. But they haven't sort of released any of the reports why. They just take it as an article of faith that the public will be like mushrooms and kept in the dark.
So will they put more police patrols up, or do they put cameras up, or what? Because we've got a great infestation of cameras in this country on the roads.
Yeah, that's what we have here too. It's all about revenue raising, I think, rather than protecting people's lives.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Now, what about the whale watch? Not the whale watch, sorry, the shark watch, Sandra. I mean, we can have a whale watch if you like.
We can have a whale watch as well.
Yeah,
why not?
but what's happened to these pesky sharks? Because we haven't checked on this for a number of weeks for obvious reasons.
You mean have they eaten anyone?
Yeah.
No, they haven't. It's been all quiet on the oceanic front. There's been no shark attacks to report. In fact, but before we spoke last.
Oh, really? Oh,
that's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very unusual.
There's been a couple in America, I think, haven't there, in the intervening period? Wasn't there a guy attacked off the coast of California?
Yeah, there were. Yeah. But I'm glad the beaches of Australia are being kept safe. It's a good thing. In this country, Sandra, over here, we are going to get today, actually, later on today, because we're now 2:40 a.m., we're going to get the hottest September day.
30 degrees.
Yeah, 30 degrees for 55 years, okay? And it's going to be, how much is it? 30 degrees, 30. Right? How does that compare with the hottest you get?
That is nothing. That's kind of like, oh well, yeah. So what? That's pretty warm and tepid for us. In summer in Sydney, we could quite often get up to 38 to 40, and if you go further north, it'll be way hotter. It'll be 45 in some areas, in Queensland, in the Northern Territory.
Well,
like south, it's obviously not as hot, but...
Well, it's over 100, isn't it?
That's terrible. So, like in places like Alice Springs, in the centre of the continent, they get. I mean,
well, why would that surprise you? It's like a desert.
It'd be over 45.
Oh man, that's unbearable. I mean, I could not live in that sort of heat.
Well, that's good news for Australia, then, isn't it?
Very funny indeed. Yeah, do Australians become conditioned to this? Because that's not normal for human beings. I mean, it might be normal for people who are born in Saudi Arabia, but it ain't normal for human beings.
Well, we're quite...
You think there are no human beings in Saudi Arabia? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, but their Bedouin roots have led them to be able to...
Sorry, I asked that.
No, their Bedouin roots led them to be able to live in those sort of arid conditions for
what about
centuries.
Africa? What about when near the equator? What about that?
Yeah, but I mean, people...
They're all humans, you know.
No, people born and raised on the equator have had families there for thousands of years.
True.
So they get used to it. But I mean, most of the people who now live in Australia came from somewhere else originally, if you see what I mean.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, their ancestors and all that kind of stuff. No, I'm sorry, Sarah. I mean, how do you cope with that? For instance, I don't know.
They have air conditioning like everybody else does.
Yeah,
What sort of stupid question is
this? No, it's not. You know as well as I do that if you break down in your car in Australia, you die, basically, don't you? If you're driving between A and B.
Well, no, I don't think so. There's not been great reports of people dying en masse.
No, Sandra, it's true, isn't it? If you don't carry water in your car in Australia and you're driving between sort of Perth and Sydney, you're dead.
Well, yes, if you're out there in the Nullarbor Plain, you probably would be dead.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, yeah.
Well, you don't really drive from Perth to Sydney, do you?
A lot of people do. Just for
do.
The experience, yeah.
Really? How many would you say?
A lot of British tourists do.
Exactly. Thank you very much indeed.
Have any of them died?
Well, I'll have to do some research on that when you've got me on the hot.
I'm glad that
I think we might have heard the story.
Sorry. I think
some carload of British tourists had driven from Sydney to Perth and died on the way. I think somebody might have written about it.
Well, I'm glad that we're such a compassionate station these days, talkSPORT, that we like to have a laugh and a shout about people dying of thirst, in the middle of these arid deserts in Australia. We all think that's very funny.
Well, you might want to take some water with you tomorrow on your way in here in case you get stuck on the M25.
Well, I might do. I tell you, it is that bad.
Dear God.
Now,
the other news, right, is, Sandra, is that I'm under a bit of pressure to come on holiday to Australia, but I've told my other half that the only chance of me going to Australia on holiday is if Porky and I come down there and do a show. So we may call upon you,
yes,
at some point next year to give us a few venues in Sydney where we can do a show.
Indeed.
That would be brilliant, and I reckon you'd have a massive audience down here because Australians would love your sense of humour.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. We just need a decent theatre with about 500 or 600 people, seats in it, and all that kind of stuff.
Sydney Opera House?
Sydney Opera House, yeah, that'd be great, wouldn't it? We'd take one of that.
Yeah. There's some beautiful smaller theatres within the Sydney Opera House, and I reckon you could easily book.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
At the Sydney Opera House,
it would be fantastic. Even if it was slightly untrue.
Yeah, because funny enough, we the first time we did the Birmingham Rep, we did their small theatre. The second time we did their big theatre, so maybe we'll have to do two. We'll do the small theatre first and the big theatre.
Because the thing about the Birmingham Repertory Theatre is just like the Sydney Opera House, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is, yeah, in Birmingham. Sandra, last question. We're all very excited over here in England because this week is the release of Ron Howard's 8 Days a Week, the Beatles film, and it's brought back a lot of reminiscences of people who saw the Beatles, and a lot of them have been recording seeing them on tour in Australia.
Well, that's right. They had their first tour in Australia was before I was born, but apparently it was absolutely massive, and it was sort of just about every teenage girl in Australia was converged on Sydney first and then Melbourne, where they played to packed out shows.
That's right.
I think there's a lot of nostalgia and a lot of fond memories.
A lot of people think Beatlemania started in Australia because the crowds were so enthusiastic, as you quite rightly say, and the Australian authorities had no idea what was about to descend upon them, and no real arrangements were made. There were no sort of security fences, and they didn't send very many policemen to go and marshal the lines of people outside the theatres and all that kind of stuff. And there were reports of young girls fainting and being carried out and all sorts of things.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And when they arrived at the airport, there was they were swarmed. Their airplane was swarmed at the airport, and then when they were staying in Melbourne at a hotel called the Southern Cross Hotel, which was right in the heart of the city, the entire city streets were blocked with all these screaming, hysterical girls. And when they came out on the balcony to sort of wave, you know, there were hearts aflutter and fainting and gushing going on all over the town.
No, I can imagine.
He's hoping for something similar when we turn up, but sadly it probably won't be quite as good as that.
Yeah, if you'd have a word with those guys at Sydney Opera House and get them to get, maximum security, please, when we get there.
Excellent stuff. Well, listen, Sandra, lovely to have you back on. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah.
Are you coming over this way anytime soon?
It's always my pleasure to chat to you. And yes, we're coming over in July of next year for my parents-in-law, mother and father-in-law 60th wedding anniversary.
Oh, cool.
Oh, brilliant.
All right, well, we must try and have dinner.
Yeah.
But we'll talk a lot before that, of course.
Of course we will.
I hope so.
Yeah, indeed. Sandra, great to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed. Always a pleasure.
It's always my pleasure. Good night.
As well. Thank you.
Good night. See you later,
Bye,
Sandra. Thank you very much indeed. Just on the conversations we were having earlier about South Africa, James says this on Twitter: Porky seeing zombie-like red, wild-eyed people. Ask him if he's sure he wasn't a mirror he was looking at. Hashtag plank. This is talkSPORT.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down, when you're strange.
This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. Loads more to come, of course. We haven't had a conversation yet about winners and losers because a couple of people are saying, are we doing winners and losers? Our thinking is we're not going to do winners and losers because we're in a new season. We've sort of we do heroes and villains when we do our Sunday show.
Yeah, that's right.
Which will probably remain when we do another weekend show from time to time.
Yeah. We'll be doing pretty more regular.
We will be, but I'm not sure if that's something we can say yet. So I'm being.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't think. So I think at the moment what we'll do on Monday is listography. We'll still do Ask Porky tomorrow.
Yes.
Porky Vision, of course, on Wednesday.
Yes.
And the Porky Quiz on Thursday. Which is a good idea.
Yes.
So we'll try and pick a listography subject coming up very, very shortly.
Yes, indeed.
But you were going to say something there. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I was going to say that although I've seen some comment on it today, you'll be aware of this this new girl power list that's been issued.
Girl power, yes.
Girl power, where the best 10 places in this country to be a young lady, literally, are... 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them are in Surrey.
Are they?
Yeah, 4 of them in Surrey. 1, 2...
What about London?
Well, hang on. No, London's not mentioned.
Is this about where you live or where you work or what?
This is where you live.
All right.
It says here, the notion of girl power is little more than an illusion for many of them, report says. Young women are being routinely failed, but the biggest failures are happening in the North and the Midlands.
Well, how are they measuring this, though?
Well, this is where they measure it, right? Factors like sexual harassment, cyberbullying, pressure to have the perfect body are among the biggest concern of girls, researchers found. They looked at child poverty, life expectancy, teenage pregnancy rates and exam grades to assess the experiences of girls aged between 10 and 24 in every local authority in England and Wales, okay?
Yeah.
There is a stark geographical divide, with those in Middlesbrough the least likely to do well in life, compared to Waverley in Surrey, which was the best place for a young woman to be brought up.
Yeah, it's all a bit nebulous, that, though, isn't it? I mean, it's difficult to measure, I would have thought, in all sort of accuracy, those types of things, you know, because there might be, instances of sexual harassment going on that don't get reported, for example. Or there might be things that they don't know about.
I always find these surveys very unkind, really, because they're all based, really, on the amount of money people have in relation to their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So what you have to say to yourself, you see, look, now the worst 10, right, and so people will have a little titter and all this kind of stuff. The worst 10 places are said to be Middlesbrough, Blackpool, Manchester, Nottingham, Liverpool, Knowsley on Merseyside, Hastings, East Sussex, not far from you.
Yeah. Also, those are all very poor areas.
Well, I was about to say Hull, Salford and Sandwell in the West Midlands. Sandwell is basically Dudley. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
So what I'm saying is the standard of living in those places is not as high as the best 10.
Right.
And the best 10...
Which does not in any way make it say obvious that there will be more one sexual harassment or anything else.
This is what I'm saying.
Who's done this study?
Well, I've just said to you, it's an examination of... every local authority in England and Wales.
Oh, it's local authorities have done.
Yeah, local authorities.
Well, see, then again, it's political, then, isn't it? It's all political. So what they're basically saying is the areas where the say lesser educated and poorer people live are worse places for girls to grow up.
I totally agree. The research was done for a charity called Plan International UK, and says the findings are worrying. Now,
Plank International.
Yeah. Now, so I've listed the worst 10 according to this report. Now list the best 10, and that is Waverley in Surrey, Rushcliffe in Nottinghamshire, Chiltern in Buckinghamshire, Mole Valley, Surrey, which is where my sister lives, Epsom and Newell, Surrey, which is where I live, Rutland in the East Midlands, Elmbridge, which again is in Surrey, that's sort of Cobham and around there.
Football as well.
Yeah, that's right, Woking in Berkshire, St Albans in Hertfordshire, and East Hertfordshire. Now, the point is...
Well, what about Chelsea and places like that?
Well, I totally agree. They're Chelsea, Kensington. I suppose maybe not a lot of people live there in terms of, families and all that kind of stuff.
Well, no, loads of people live there, but the thing is...
It's very exclusive, though.
Well, yeah, it is, but if it's the actual whole borough, then there's also parts of it which are not particularly well off as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. But what I find really odd about these is that, are we supposed to be shocked that people growing up in Blackpool don't have as comfortable a lifestyle as people who grow up in...
But this is what I don't understand.
In Elmbridge, in Surrey.
Yeah, but what I don't understand is what is the point that they're making? And when they're talking about girl power and the accessibility, if you like, of... opportunity to girls.
Yes.
What about the accessibility of opportunity to boys? Is it different?
No.
It seems to me to be a pointless activity.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's just trying to raise more money for something, isn't it?
It says here, as well as analysing data, the authors of the report also interviewed 103 girls of diverse backgrounds. 1 in 5 said they'd experienced some type of inappropriate contact, touching, flashing, sexual assault or rape while at school. Well, see, I don't know why anyone would be surprised.
Well, hang on, there's a bit of a stretch there, isn't there? I mean, there's a big there's a big difference in all of those crimes that you've just described.
Yes, I agree. But
you can't lump them all in together.
No, you have to understand that if you understand anything about the social strata of our country, then more crimes happen in Blackpool, and they're not always serious crimes. They're crimes from people who have deprivation. So it might be theft.
Well, they might be crimes committed by people who are there on a stag weekend as well.
Exactly, or might have gone there to claim benefits because it's a seaside resort or something like that. You know what I mean? Then there are going to be in places like St Albans.
To be honest, I think it's a completely pointless study.
Well, I have to say that these sort of, when you get a headline on it, why it's worse to be a girl in the north than the south, I think that's a shocking headline because
it's completely misleading.
The point is, if you're brought up in Middlesbrough or Liverpool or Salford, those 3 of the towns named in the worst 10, you have an expectation of life, which starts on day one when you're a baby and you're brought up in a community and all that kind of stuff. I don't think anybody ever turns around and says, "Oh, my life is awful
because of where I live,"
compared to Mole Valley in Surrey, because they don't know where Mole Valley in Surrey is, and they don't know what people there do and live, and they will say to themselves, "No, actually, I like living in my neighbourhood here because I have a lot of friends and all that."
Yeah, but these again are people who seek to create division by claiming that there is division.
Yes, exactly.
That's what they do.
No, I totally agree.
And the people who are supposedly responsible for the division hardly ever go on about it. Yeah. By the way, did you see that story about Jeremy Corbyn's constituency, which is going to be done away with?
Yeah, they're getting rid of it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
in the boundary commission changes.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And apparently, even though he is more likely to go into a similar constituency next door to Diane Abbott,
that's right. Yeah,
there's a situation whereby if they both decide to stand down, or one of them decides to stand down. There's 2 women, Diane Abbott and somebody else. If they stand down in order to let him stand, the Labour Party rules say that he can't do it because he has to be a woman. Because if a woman's in a seat, they have to have a woman-only shortlist.
Oh, I see.
So I don't know whether there's any politics involved in that. But
they'll change the rules.
It'd be funny if Jeremy Corbyn was still the leader of the Labour Party and didn't have a seat.
They'll change the rules, mate, because that's what politicians always do.
Indeed. But this is supposed to be being done by the Boundary Commission, who are supposed to be, neutral.
Well, the funny thing is, I think it gives the Tories an advantage of 40-plus seats. But, I mean, that was one of the issues, the boundary changes, which led to the coalition government being largely inert. And that was that, Cleggy, whatever his name was.
Nick Clegg.
Yeah.
What happened to him? He's still there, isn't he?
No, he moaned the other day that,
he lost his seat, didn't he?
Yeah, he lost his seat, but he moaned the other day that being Deputy Prime Minister made me fat and lazy and all this kind of nonsense.
Really?
Yeah. And, no, not lazy. He thought it was very hard worker, but fat and overweight and stressed out and all this kind of stuff.
No.
But, no, he wanted to abolish the House of Lords, or at least turn it into a voting chamber.
And he also wanted to abolish tuition fees. He didn't get too well on that one.
No, he didn't do that one. And when David Cameron, the man who's now decided to quit politics altogether.
El Planco.
Yeah, that's how committed he was to politics.
Yeah.
Well, David Cameron couldn't get that through his backbenchers. He said, OK, well, you're not on with boundary changes. And the boundary changes would have given Cameron a possible majority of about 45 at the last election.
Yeah.
So it's all scratch my back, scratch yours.
Well,
stuff,
it is
isn't
absolutely
it?
right. Now, we've got lots more coming up in the last hour, including this geography, so we'll have to choose that.
Yes.
And lots of tweets at Mike. This is talkSPORT. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on this morning, of course. Watch out for that. I've got some news for you, actually. Do you remember that Red River you mentioned to me over in Russia?
I did.
The world's biggest nickel producer has apparently admitted making a spillage, even though previously they denied all knowledge, right?
No.
This was a river somewhere in, where is it? The Daldekian River.
Oh, yes.
Somewhere in eastern Russia.
Oh, yeah.
The Russian Arctic, in fact. Turned blood red, as you described
That's right,
the other day.
Yeah.
Apparently there's some company called Norilsk Nickel.
My God.
Said that it was heavy rain on the 5th of September caused the filtration dam plant to overflow.
It certainly did.
Into the river. But it said, don't worry, there's no danger to people or wildlife.
Yeah, no, just a red river full of zinc.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
and apparently Greenpeace are not very happy about it. They say it's too early to judge the impact, but you can't just say it's no big deal, which is pretty much what they've said.
Exactly. Now, listen, I've come across a report. I was reading my science journals earlier on today, which actually says that the fallacy of how drunk you are is only relative to the company you're in.
The fallacy of how drunk you are?
Yes.
What do you mean, whether you are very drunk or not so drunk? Or what?
I should reword that. The fallacy of how sober you think you are in drunken behaviour is only relative to those around you.
Yes.
So, for instance, if you're blind drunk, but so are the other two people you're with at a table of three, you all presume to be sober.
Yes.
If you see what I mean.
Well, it's a bit like when you're in a situation, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that either of us have been in this situation, but where you say you've been out drinking, and then you suddenly walk into a place which is either a place of work or a place where there isn't anybody drinking.
Yes.
And that is when you realise you might actually be more drunk than you thought you were.
Well, what this report says is also that if you drink more than the people around you, you think you're more drunk than you are because of the sober behaviour of the people in your company.
Yes.
So that's why you should never go out drinking with somebody who doesn't drink.
Yes.
Because it's very, very bad.
Yeah.
Because your brain can't handle why you are having trouble assessing and assimilating the environment in which you're in, while the person opposite you seems perfectly lucid and able.
I must admit, I can't remember the last time I went out with somebody who didn't drink, actually.
Well, you
Very
do
unusual.
Occasionally when people say, I'm taking tablets or something like that. You know what I mean?
I don't go out with people that take tablets.
No, well, I don't usually, but I did once. And this comes from Cardiff University, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
They say that... They asked people to take part in this exercise and they breath tested 2,000 people on a night out. Not all on the same night out, on different nights out, right. And asked 500 how drunk they felt. The average reading was above the drink-drive limit, and 1 in 10 were 3 times the limit. So that'd probably put us in that category, I suppose.
Well, that's a bit harsh.
If it was a couple of hours after a live show or something like that. But importantly, when someone who was tipsy, as they use the word there, I hate that word tipsy. What does that mean?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Well, because it means slightly drunk, doesn't it?
You know, I remember actually...
I don't mind using it describing other people.
Yeah, people say, I'm getting a bit tipsy now. They're totally inexperienced drinkers, because it's a shocking word. So it says, when someone who was tipsy was surrounded by drunks, they underestimated how intoxicated they were.
Right.
And being surrounded by teetotalers made them feel very drunk.
Would that be the same if you were, say, in a pub and maybe you were surrounded by more drunk people? You know, it's like, does the number of drunk people make a difference, is what I'm saying?
Well, I think we're talking here about amateur drinkers, aren't we? Because the tipsy brigade are amateur drinkers, you know, once they've had a pint and a half, they're a bit tipsy now. So those people underestimate how intoxicated they are.
Right.
Hang on.
Why have you suddenly stopped?
Sorry, when they're surrounded by drunks, underestimate how they are. But...
What if you're drinking on your own?
When they're surrounded by teetotalers, made them feel very drunk. Well, you don't drink on your own, really, do you?
Well, not necessarily on your own, but I mean, you will have a glass of wine at home from time to time, watching a game or something like that, won't you? As I will sometimes have a night.
Oh yeah, sure.
Watching a movie. I mean, last night, for example, I watched a couple of films.
Yes.
And had a couple of bottles of wine.
Oh yeah, which ones you watched?
I watched The Departed actually because I hadn't seen it for a while.
The Departed.
The Departed was a Scorsese film about the gangs of Boston. Great film.
Oh really?
You haven't seen The Departed?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah,
I think you've mentioned it before. Maybe I'll have to take it in.
No.
Just
Leonardo DiCaprio's in it. And Jack Nicholson.
Oh yeah, you told me about this before.
It's a very good film. I'm not lending it to you though, because I still haven't got the House of Cards.
No, I know, but you don't get blind drunk on your own, do you?
Not really, no.
Or if you do, you don't realise because you've got nothing to gauge it
against. What I'm saying is, if you're sitting there watching a movie and you're sort of pouring the bottle into the glass,
yes,
you know, there can be times when by the time you finish the bottle, you realise that you probably should go to bed.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Now it says here, researcher Simon Moore said, irrespective of how much someone is drunk, if they observe others who are more drunk than they are, they feel less at risk from drinking more and will keep drinking.
Yes, well, I suppose that would be normal, wouldn't it?
So that means
it's the environment you're in.
Eh?
It's the environment you're in.
Yeah, but this is the most ridiculous part of this report, right? I said it's from sort of Cardiff University.
Right. What's wrong with Cardiff University?
Well, nothing except for this ridiculous paragraph at the end of the report.
Yeah.
The researchers...
There was a lot of drunk people when we did that show at the tram shed in Cardiff.
Oh, there were an awful lot of drunk people. Yeah, and they're getting drunk during the show.
And you actually weren't, because that was one of the nights where you had hardly had anything, because you weren't well.
I wasn't well at all. I had to be dragged up on the stage, and I had a terrible journey down there. I was helped by a nurse on the train on the way there, because I was suffering from some terrible lurgy or something.
Wasn't that also where you wondered what happened to the River Severn? You didn't realise you'd
gone under it. Yeah, that's right.
You kept asking where the bridge was.
I did, yeah. And if you remember, I left the venue early after the show and got completely lost in Cardiff trying to get home.
No, you were lucky you didn't get pickpocketed there, actually.
I was.
Or mugged.
But anyway, listen to this ridiculous paragraph here. So this researcher, Simon Moore, says... He suggests that town planners, this has got to be a joke, could arrange pubs and clubs to be built specifically next to non-alcoholic places, like the Salvation Army headquarters. I don't know. In order to prevent drunkenness.
That's a brilliant idea. What a fantastic idea that is, except for the fact that the Salvation Army headquarters wouldn't be open in the evening when people were mostly out in the pub.
Yeah. He said, understanding how people judge their drunkenness is an important first step towards designing environments and honing interventions to reduce excessive drinking. I mean, what a ridiculous plan.
Well, I mean, there may be some truth in the fact that if you've got a town centre where there's an awful lot of drinking goes on and you see sort of women staggering about and men staggering about falling over in the street like you see on those TV shows, maybe people don't realise quite how badly messed up they are. Yeah. But, I mean, you're not going to stop people drinking by putting a closed operation next door which talks about temperance, is it?
It's absolutely ridiculous. But I suppose you're right, in a way, when you see all these dreadful pictures of these young ladies going out on the razzle in a lot of our major cities, main towns. I suppose if they're looking at each other, they're all thinking, well, I'm just normal.
Yeah.
The fact that they're face down on the pavement and their shoes are,
and people are fighting and all the rest of it.
Left behind, 100 yards away or something like that. I suppose they're thinking, well, this is perfectly normal because everybody else looks like this.
That was another thing I was going to ask you about the West Ham scenario, actually. Just go back to that for a second.
Go on,
people were describing how some of these people fighting had started off like throwing beer over each other. So has there been a change in the sale of beer at football matches rule that I don't know about? Because I didn't think you could drink beer while watching football.
No, I didn't think you could take it to your seat.
No.
I'm sure you can't.
Well, apparently at West Ham there were people throwing beer over each other.
Well, I don't know whether they smuggle it in or whether, it could be maybe to the entrance from the concourse and to the seats or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, they've got a few problems there. But the way to sort it out in the end will have to be a complete review of the seating arrangements, and you've got you have a feeling, or I have a feeling anyway, that they took the stadium as it was, and they weren't able, in fact, to impose or introduce their own seating arrangements.
Right.
I don't think they could.
But I wonder whether there's going to have to be some Football Association inquiry or Premier League inquiry into what is actually going on there. Because if they have got bars that are open and they're selling beer when they're not supposed to, then that's probably wrong as well, isn't it?
Why don't they take a trip up to Manchester? Because, of course, Manchester City also inherited an athletic stadium, didn't they?
East Manchester Stadium.
That's right,
wasn't it?
which was the Commonwealth Games Stadium, wasn't it? Now, we've never had any complaints there.
They don't have any problems.
No problems at all. You've never had any complaints. You've never been had this standing problem. Never had.
And they've been quite successful since getting their new stadium as well.
They have. They have indeed. They have indeed. And also, groups of people who want to be together apparently can be together, because we've got a couple of Manchester City fans in this office here, and they say it is a great atmosphere at that stadium.
Right.
So I think West Ham need to go up to Manchester and find out how they did it and try and replicate the plan and take it back. Yeah,
exactly right.
Definitely.
Dazza says this: Dudley and Sandwell are two completely different boroughs. How do you find your way around, Porky?
How do I find my way around?
Yeah.
Well, I used to work on the Birmingham Evening Mail, and at one time, because we were launching a new edition called the Sandwell Mail, I was dispatched to the Black Country, to Dudley, and that's from where we produce the Sandwell Mail. So I'm not saying that Sandwell is Dudley. I'm saying that Dudley
is near.
Well, I thought it was in the borough of Sandwell.
Okay. Well, maybe that's why the paper didn't do very well.
Yeah, maybe it didn't do too well. Yeah, it could well be. Yeah,
the plank who was in charge of it didn't actually know where it was.
That's right. Yeah, it could well be. Yeah, got the geography a bit wrong there.
Yeah, never mind. Another great succce story from Porky's illustrious past.
That's
right. Coming up, let's choose a listography, because we've got lots of suggestions.
Okay.
So we'll have to get one right.
Right.
This is talkSPORT.
Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. We're going to try and pick a listography now. The other game is just about to get underway in a moment. Mr. Parry, LA against San Francisco, which you might call a bit of a local derby.
Oh, yeah, we're all
I know you're very excited about it. I know you're going to be very excited about it. There's a couple of things to talk about that coming up in a while as well.
Yes.
How about this? Right, Roy says, just back from holiday in Santa Ponza. Not sure where that is. How about the top 3 Irish bars you've ever been in?
Top 3 Irish bars?
Which is not a bad one.
Yeah, not bad.
Magoo says, in honour of the return of Sandra Lee, 3 favourite Australians, which you could possibly do.
Yes.
She'd have to be one of them, of course.
Yes, indeed.
Stumpy Dog says, 3 best jokes that still make you laugh. Or 3 times where you were so unwell you had to throw a sickie, not including heart issues.
Yes.
I'm not sure we'd have 3 times we've thrown a sickie.
No, I don't think there is.
Lizzie says, 3 people on Twitter that you would like to follow you.
Yes.
Don't know about that one. 3 radio shows you would most like to present or hijack. I think we've already done all that.
Yeah.
Peter says Everton's greatest moments in the last 21 years.
Well, I mean, I could do that, but you might find that
I might
find
that a bit of a struggle. 3 best moments so far this year, or 3 worst moments so far this year.
Do you know what?
Says Phil.
Do you know what I quite like? A variation on the sickie one. What about the 3 times when you wanted to throw a sickie, but you couldn't? And how bad it was to struggle into the job you had to do that day.
Okay.
Is that any good?
That would be all right, I suppose.
Yeah? Is that okay?
Yeah, I suppose we could do that.
Could we do that?
Yeah, we could do that.
You
Might
sure?
be a bit more confessional type.
Well, it'd be a bit confessional,
Okay.
I agree.
All right, well then we'd have to give that credit, I suppose, to, that was from Stumpy Dog.
Yeah.
Steve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we'll do that one then.
Excellent.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say the start of that NFL game, and it's only a kind of tangential moment, I guess, for people over here, but there's still a lot of this business where a couple of the players are not standing for the national anthem and kneeling down, which I'm really surprised they're allowing them to do. Well, not because I don't think they should, but just because the NFL normally is quite a rigid organisation and they punish players for all sorts of misdemeanours.
Well, the only thing I would say is it happens in almost every game now. The protest is either the raised fist, which I think was initiated by a guy called Tommy Smith at the Mexico Olympics in '68, I think.
Oh, the Black Power salute.
Yeah, that's right. When he stood on the podium, he and the chap next to him who came third, I think, the bronze medal guy.
Yeah.
They were banned immediately from the US team and sent home because that's the sort of thing that used to happen in those days.
Right.
But my 2 observations about the NFL are, A, I think at least 50% of the players are black, aren't they?
Yeah, at least 50%.
Yeah, I was going to say at least 50%.
I mean, Colin Kaepernick is kind of leading this. He's playing for the 49ers. He's like the backup quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was kneeling there again, but he's been now joined by one other player.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the kneeling process, lots of guys come up and give him a hug.
That's right, yeah, exactly. So you know, how are you going to impose a sort of ban on something which may be supported by at least half the players?
Well, that's
like
the
that.
thing. I think it would be incredibly difficult. And they're doing it, of course, for this Black Lives Matter and
that's
for
right.
the shooting of all the black guys over there by the cops.
That's right, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. And it's happening at every game. So, you know, short of calling off all the fixtures and banning off the players, what you've got to do is you've got to accept it as a relevant protest.
Yeah. And some of the other players are protesting by holding a single fist up in the air as well, similar to that Olympic thing. But also, what's interesting as well is Kaepernick, since he started his protest, has now sold more jerseys than any other player in the entire league. So it's obviously, picking up a sort of popularity, if you like.
Yeah. Now, listen, I've got a bit of a puzzle here.
Have you?
Because a chap has posted a picture, I think he's an Everton fan, because it goes EFC.
Right.
I don't want to say what his name is yet, because I'm going to show you the picture.
Okay.
Because this was taken in Edinburgh whilst we were there for the festival.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't remember meeting this chap and can't think of the location where it was taken. And
oh, yeah, I remember this guy, yeah.
Right.
I think it was a Sunday night, and this was the just outside the theatre.
Was it?
Yeah, do you remember where it was quite a modern building? It was Studio One Assembly behind those sort of, sort of breeze block steps. He was the Everton fan that came up and was sort of what you might describe as a cheeky chappy.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Okay,
well, that's very nice. In that case, Ian, thank you very much.
And he came up. Do you remember he said, "I've got 2 tickets, but the other half couldn't come, so do you want to buy it back off me?" And we said no.
No, that's right. Yeah, okay. Well, very nice to see you, Ian. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming along.
I think he did, yeah. Just remember he said he had to get a bus home or something, so he asked if he could have a picture.
That's right. He said he'd been there 35 years?
Yes, he lives in Edinburgh, yeah.
25 years?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. That's fine.
So you can give his name out now if you want to.
I said it's Ian. So, thank you, Ian, for getting in touch. Good to hear from you.
Absolutely right.
Hope you enjoyed
here's another
Walton
couple of listographies have come in. We've already chosen it. We can always do it because we might end up doing this every night, but we don't know yet. 3 most strange or interesting places you've ended up after a night of bladderation.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure we could do that one.
No.
And Sam says, thanks for restoring some normality in my life by filling in your old time slot.
Okay, well, that's something that we're here to serve.
It's a movable feast, basically.
It's a movable feast, of course it is.
And somebody sent a picture of a cricket ball hitting some stumps.
Yeah.
From Paul. He says MG being bowled out from the Express by Rosie Boycott.
Oh yeah, well, I'm afraid that you weren't the only one there. A lot of people, because that was a political turnabout.
Well, it was.
I mean, the thing is, for years and years since the Beaverbrook years, the Daily Express was very much a Conservative newspaper.
Yeah.
And at the time in the mid '60s, when it sold 4.4 million copies a day, it was the voice of right-wing politics in this country, as much as the Daily Mirror, which also sold about 4.5 million a day, was the voice of Labour politics in this country.
Indeed.
And what happened was Rosie Boycott was brought in by a new proprietor, a guy called Lord Hollick.
Lord Hollick,
who was a Labour peer.
He was.
So he wanted to change the paper around.
Well, what was interesting actually was that it all kind of coincided basically with the march of New Labour.
Yes,
because what they obviously worked out very cleverly was not only was it possible for them to get into Downing Street, but one of the things that would help them get into Downing Street would be changing or turning around one of the papers, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you remember, they got the Daily Mail got very much in favour of Gordon Brown, and they decided that actually might be quite a good idea to get the Blair and Brown lot in, and then the Express suddenly turned into a Labour paper.
That's right.
And endorsed Tony Blair.
It did,
which was quite revolutionary.
It was very revolutionary.
Have I told you the time there? I was there once, and the editor was on the back bench, and I was the foreign editor.
Yes,
and he was on the phone to Lord Stevens, who was at the time still the chairman, but he was very much of the old, Tory Express.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah,
he was dictating a leader column, just not quite on the eve of the election, but about what should happen during the election. And I picked up the phone, and it was Lord Hollick, and so the two different lords were both on the phone. And he was dictating one to me about what we should do to support the Labour Party. And I had to go up to the editor afterwards, and he said, I've got this leader from, Lord Stevens. It wasn't like a whole leader, but it was like a couple of paragraphs. And I said, well, I've just had Lord Hollick on the phone, and he wants you to do this.
Yeah.
And he went, oh, really? And he went, what do you think I should do? And I said, well, Hollick's now the owner, isn't he? This other guy's the chairman. I suppose you better go with the owner. Yeah. So that was when it began to turn.
That's right, it turned, yeah. But at the same time, the whole of News International also, well, not the whole, but I mean, certainly all their main titles.
Well, they went for Blair as well.
Well, of course they did, because they had a different way of looking at it. They asked the experts who's going to win, and then when they decided who's going to win, they decided to back the winner.
Yes,
which is an old trick that has been going on.
You would normally do.
Well, Derek Jameson did that. Derek Jameson was a famous editor of the Daily Express from decades back, and he was he famously once said, problem was with the establishment. I didn't think that boys like me from the East End of London should have been the editor of Daily Express, because he was. Yeah. His father was a Billingsgate porter and all this kind of stuff, And the famous story.
He was quite a character, wasn't he?
Yeah, famous story about, I stood in Fleet Street as a copy boy. I looked up at the Express bill and I said, one of these days I'm going to be the editor of this paper. And everybody laughed at me. And then 30 years later I was, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
because you actually could still do that in those days. I'm not sure you could do that now.
No, you couldn't do it now. He started in Fleet Street when he was 14 as a copy runner for the Press Association. Yeah. But anyway, the point of my story was, I was told famously, he'd left by the time I got there, but, some of the old hands there said, oh, well, the way Derek did it was he was appointed as editor 6 months before an election.
Yeah.
And he called us all in, the political editors and all that, and he said, right, who's going to win this election?
Yeah.
And they said, well, I think the Tories will. He said, right, we're backing them.
Right.
And that was the decision.
Yeah.
If he'd have said, I think it's going to be Labour, Harold Wilson, right, we'll back him.
Right.
They didn't care.
Yeah, although they never did, though, did they? They never did back Labour until that moment when they decided suddenly it was a good idea.
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting times.
Yeah.
Now, the game is about to get underway. It has got underway, actually.
Yeah, nobody cares,
Yeah, they do.
You realise that, don't
There's
you?
loads of people watching this,
No.
and listening to us. They've got the sound turned down, and they're watching the game.
Yeah,
the NFL season is very short.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're a bit deluded.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you were on the grog earlier.
Here's one from Steve. He says, I bet Porky would never throw a sickie if it meant appearing on a show somewhere.
Well, no, it's not that. I've always been dedicated to my job, and in fact, we'll go through it in a minute, and we'll tell you about the times when it could have happened but didn't.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll do that when listography comes up.
Indeed.
Very shortly indeed.
Yes.
Now, the other thing that's coming up this week, I suppose, apart from the Bake Off being sold off to Channel 4, will be the return of the Champions League tonight.
Indeed.
So we not do a bit of, because I'll tell you what we haven't talked about is the old Selco predictor, because we haven't been here for the start of the season.
Right.
I wonder whether we should
Is that still going?
Well, of course it's going. Yeah,
right.
It's going for another year.
No, but I mean, is it still going with us in the league?
Well, that's what I don't know. We'll have to discover that over the course of this week. We'll have to find out whether there's going to be a special presenters league. I'm just being told actually there is no presenters league this week, or this year rather. But we can presumably still take part as presenters, though, can't we? Yeah. So we should do that.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, you came fourth from bottom last time, so you might want to better that.
Yes.
So I wonder whether, because sometimes what they do when you haven't filled it in every week is they put you, the computer picks your choices for you.
Yes.
So I might have to see if I can check that out.
Well, I'm perfectly capable of making those decisions for myself. Thank you very much indeed.
So you don't want me to do it on your behalf?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because last year, remember, I had to fill them in for you because you couldn't figure out how to get on a computer.
Don't be ridiculous.
Well,
honestly, you make up these ridiculous stories and nobody believes them.
Absolutely
don't worry about
true. Okay, well, we'll talk about that a little bit more perhaps later on. We've got Ask Porky tomorrow. We've got Porky Vision on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Porky Quiz on Thursday, which you haven't been doing particularly well in various different guises. Coming up next, though, we're going to do listography on the times we felt like not going to work but had to go anyway.
There's nothing here that is real. Well, nothing that I'd stay here for. Nothing I'd like to steal. And I'm sick of it all.
This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. I got a message from Julia, actually, who always calls herself the first Mrs. Parry.
Oh, yes.
Sent a picture of herself saying, "Tell Porky I'm at work and wishing I was listening to the two mics."
Okay, she's at work, is she?
Yeah, she is, yeah. Well, of course, some people can work and listen to the two mics, but I guess she's not one of them, unfortunately.
Yes. No.
So that's the listography music for this particular section,
okay,
where we're going to talk about times we wished that we could have thrown a sickie and not actually got into work.
Exactly.
Not the kind of thing we normally do.
No, I definitely agree. But sometimes during your career, when you're in your 30s or something like that, you do indulge to excesses in your social life after work, because our profession's all about, some nights you finish at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, some nights 7:30 or 8, and then you get together and you have a few drinks, and that can lead on to other things, many other things.
Well, I tell you what, I had a bad day once, which should have resulted in me throwing a sickie, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So I'll start off with this one. I'm not sure I could come up with three, actually, but this one certainly would beat most of them. It started up, it was a Sunday. It was when I was working in Scotland.
Yes.
And I was presenting the mid-morning show on this Talk 107 radio station.
Right, okay.
But I wasn't running it yet. I was just a presenter.
Yeah.
And I'd been invited to, there was a cup final. At Hampden.
Right.
And I'd been invited by this lawyer friend of mine who's since passed on. And he and another lawyer friend turned up at my house in Glasgow at about 10:30 in a Rolls Royce. This guy had like an old Rolls Royce. Yeah, it was like a 12:30 kick-off or something.
Right, yeah.
And so we drove off to the apartment of somebody whose flat was nearby, started drinking champagne, went to the football, it was hospitality scenario, ended up... getting quite well oiled at that.
Yes.
But was then invited to another do later on in the day, which was in Falkirk somewhere.
Right. How far away is that?
It's about 50 miles or something.
50?
Yeah.
What, 50?
Yeah.
Crikey, that's the distance.
Actually, no, probably more like 35.
35. Distance from here to Reading, so to
something
speak.
like that, yeah. But it was some kind of charitable dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
So I got picked up after the game by a friend of mine's driver, who then drove me over.
Not the Rolls-Royce guy.
Not the Rolls-Royce. Those are different people.
Different people, right.
And then we had to stop and pick up, funnily enough, some guy who used to be a manager of Kilmarnock or something.
Yes.
We had to pick him up on the way, and it was one of these mad... We sort of got to Falkirk, to this hotel, where the drinking then carried on until about midnight.
Right.
Where a mutual friend of ours then, who was my host for the night, said, why don't we go back to Glasgow and head back to the club?
Another 35 miles.
So we went back, the other way again to Glasgow.
Yes.
By the time I ended up at his house, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'd been on the go for about approximately 18 hours.
Right.
And I had 2 hours sleep and went into work to do the show.
And appeared behind a microphone.
Appeared behind a microphone,
Not a good idea. But,
and I think when I first got there, I had to drink a lot of black coffee before I could actually do the show. And if I could have rung them up, but you know what it's like in radio. I mean, it's not like any other business. You can't just ring up at sort of 2 hours before you're meant to be there and say I don't feel well.
No, if you're the news editor of a newspaper, somebody else can always do that. Yeah. But if you're a voice that's going to actually be broadcasting, it's very, very difficult.
I mean, under other circumstances, I probably should have died. Considering the amount of imbibement that was going on.
Well, that is the problem, isn't it? Well, there was one time when I was taken out for dinner by the editor of the paper I worked for, and a couple of other executives. It's one of those sort of dudes, and we presented the editor with a framed copy of the Illustrated London News, which announced his knighthood.
Oh, right.
Because he'd been made a Knight of the Realm. And
is that still going, the Illustrated London News?
Was it the London Register or something? What was it called?
the Illustrated London News was going then. Yeah, I'm sure. But I just wonder if it's still going now.
Well, I don't know, but I think it was. Anyway, for some unknown reason, the conversation turned to the editor's wife.
Oh, yeah.
And for some unknown reason, I just took instant dislike to her at that moment and started insulting her.
Oh, dear.
Yes.
Was this quite late on?
Do you know, I don't think it was that late. I think it was about 10:30 or something, But I suppose we'd been drinking champagne in his office from about 4:30 in the afternoon or something like that, And then the car had arrived and we'd all gone off to somewhere in Covent Garden and, it's a very nice restaurant and all that. But then the deputy editor said, "Look, Mike, shut up." I said, "No, don't tell me to shut up. I've got opinions. I'm entitled to express them."
Yeah.
And then, finally, other people on the table lost their patience with me because, this was not going to put the editor in a good mood.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, well, if you lot are all so spineless, I know you're all thinking like I'm thinking. I'm only talking aloud what you're all thinking. You're all useless and spineless. Okay, I'll go. So I got up and then put my foot through the framed copy of the...
By accident, presumably.
By accident. I didn't mean to smash it or kick it in, but it was lying against the pillar next to the table.
Right.
So I got, and there was this terrible smashing noise, and I had literally put my foot through the... the framed copy that we as grovelling sort of deputies and assistants had bought this framed copy.
Because there's an awful lot of that going on.
Yeah. You have been made a Knight of the Realm. Well, that went, everywhere, smashed and all that kind of stuff. So
you left in sort of quite a scene then?
Yeah, it was, quite a scene and all that kind of stuff, And by now it had got to, time when all trains had finished and all that kind of stuff. I had to wander around Covent Garden trying to find a car to take me home and all that kind of stuff. But it was a working day the next day. So, when I eventually... So I got home and had a few more.
Because the worst thing about that as well is not his reaction, but all the reaction of everyone else.
Exactly. Right? Everyone else in the around the table.
Who would be dancing on your grave if they could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And anyway, the most remarkable thing happened. So I then went home and... I had more drink at home, I told him.
As you do.
I felt very confident that I'd done the right thing. Yeah. He would respect me for my honesty and straightforwardness and all this kind of stuff, And
it's always a mistake, though.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. But, I mean, my head was completely askew.
Yeah.
I mean, my brain was divided into two and this kind of stuff. So I reckon I got to bed about 4 o'clock. And it was work the next day. So I woke up at 6.
Right.
And then very, very slowly... it started coming back to me, and the horror, the sheer horror of what had happened, and I suppose I spent an hour sort of getting up, trying to pull myself together, drinking coffee, getting the shower, out the shower, and then set off for work, and then I thought, I don't know if it's worth going to work, when I reflected back on what had happened last night.
Yeah, but it all seems worse as well the more you think about it.
Well, of course it does. But anyway, I got in about 7:30, and I always got in first. I was first on the news floor all the time.
I mean, it didn't cross your mind to throw a sickie, presumably, because that's not what we do, right?
Well, that would have been an admission of, complete and utter guilt. Yeah. And I thought, the only chance I've got is to go in and try and either...
brazen it out.
Brazen it out or plead clemency, But the most amazing thing was, so I went in and I was going about my business when the editor sloped in at about 10:15, like he normally did, and then the room was full, so, I didn't feel quite so isolated. Right. Then I got a call to go and see him, and I thought this was it.
Right.
And I walked in, and he said, Michael, come in and shut the door. He said, right. He said, that was all my fault last night.
Yeah.
I thought he was having a laugh.
Right.
I said, sorry, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm the senior man. I called the party. He said, I called the dinner. He said, I was in charge of everything. He said, it shouldn't have been allowed to get out of hand like that. He said...
That's decent of him.
It was incredible. And I said, yeah, but I said, no. He said, I don't want you to say anything more. Don't say anything more.
Yeah.
He said, okay, don't hear about it anymore. It never happened.
Right.
Get out and get on with your job. That was it.
That's one of the great things about the business.
Couldn't believe it.
One of the great things about the business.
Yeah.
The second one I'm going to tell you is about the day that I got fired from the Daily Mirror.
Oh, right.
Because it was, again, a bit like you. You heard the sort of smoke signals and it worked. I'd worked out. In fact, so much so that about 3 days earlier, one of my reporters had come in and said, there's a lot of rumours they're going to shut the paper down.
Yes.
And I went, absolute rubbish. I said, I've not heard any of that. I said, where are you hearing that from? He said, well, we're just hearing it. It's being said.
Yes.
And so I started making a few calls to London, and suddenly, as the days went on, the calls were not being returned.
Yes.
Things were not happening.
Yeah.
I then went down. We were working at the Daily Record building in Glasgow, and I went downstairs to get a cup of coffee at some point or other, and I met the woman who was in charge of the HR department in Scotland.
Yes.
And she was standing in the queue in front of me, and she was like, oh, how are you? I said, oh, I'm all right. I said, I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, basically. I'm just waiting for something to happen.
Yes.
I said, I keep trying to get hold of this one particular guy who was the managing editor, and I said, he's not returning my calls. And she said, I think he's coming up tomorrow, isn't he? And I went, oh, is he? I said, well, I didn't know that.
No.
So she told me this, so I'm then thinking, okay, so that's when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So the next morning I woke up, and you have that sort of slight... I mean, it's not because you care about being fired particularly, but you don't really want to be fired at any point.
No.
And so you had a few butterflies in the stomach. Finally, at 8 o'clock, I came out of the shower, the phone rang, and it was this guy.
Yes.
And he said, oh, hi, Mike. He said, I said, oh, right, I heard you might be coming up. He said, can we have a meeting? I said, yeah, fine. I said, I'll be in the office in the next half hour, 45 minutes. He's like, no, I don't think I want to have a meeting at the office. I've booked a room at the Malmaison Hotel. And I was like, oh, okay. You want to meet at the Malmaison? He said, yeah, I've booked a room. And I said, is it a smoking room? He said, no. I said, well, I'll be smoking. So, you better get ready to pay a fine. And then that was where I went and got the news that they were basically shutting the whole operation down and firing me. Handed me a sheet of paper which had the compensation on it. And I really didn't feel like going into work.
No.
Because he said to me, well, we'd like you to come in if you don't mind to address the troops, which I then agreed to do.
Right.
So it was all quite civilised. But then the day just kind of spiralled out of control. And
exactly.
I said to him, well, I'm going to take everyone out and we're all going to go and get completely bladdered at a nearby hostelry of our choice. But the clever thing that I did was to take them into town away from the office.
Right.
Because quite a few of them were quite upset and wanted to kill someone.
This was out at Anderson Quay, was it? Yeah, I see, yeah.
But we went out into town, into centre of Glasgow.
Did the paper come out the following morning?
Well, it did.
Or had they closed it down already?
Well, they basically said that all they were going to do was change a few of the sports pages. Well, we used to change it wholesale.
Yes.
So it was the Daily Mirror that now comes out in Scotland.
Yeah.
Which we used to sell 100,000 copies of, which went down to about 30.
That's terrible, isn't it? Shocking.
We're nearly out of time now, so you've only got time for one more.
Well, okay. Well, my second one was when I worked on the Evening Chronicle in Newcastle. There was a girl there who wanted to be taken out all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But she wasn't. What's the word I can say? She wasn't.
Imbued with beauty?
No, well, okay, if you like. She wouldn't have been. She wouldn't have got very far in a Miss World competition.
Okay.
And of course, most nights when you're young people and you're working on an evening paper and all that, you finish about sort of 4:30, 5 o'clock. You're the pub across the road.
Yeah.
And then the more drink you have, the more this lady's features changed.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
In a good way.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, from looking through the bottom of a pint of Newcastle exhibition glass, it seemed to get better.
Yes,
you see what I mean.
I imagine the same was true of her looking at you.
I'm sure you're right. Yeah. I'm sure you're right. So anyway, it got to 11 o'clock, of course, and the inevitable happened. I thought, seriously,
Well, there was a Rogerisation suggestion made.
Oh yeah, there was a plot afoot. Yeah. and we decided to go back to her place.
Right.
Because
why not your place?
Well, because I couldn't bear I was living with two other reporters.
Oh,
I
you didn't
couldn't
want
bear
them
the
to know.
shame of them knowing that I, actually, sort of reduced myself to this level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went back.
Such a gentleman.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I went back to her place, but then, and she lived in one of these.
Did she live on her own?
No, she lived with one other girl.
Right.
And she lived in one of these places where you open the door. And then it's just a set of stairs, which takes you up to the flat upstairs.
Right.
And I don't know what happened, but as we got to the top of the stairs, I turned to look at her. She was behind me. And the full plainness of her features suddenly hit me.
Right.
Like a bolt out of the blue.
Right.
And I said something like, I don't feel well. And I rushed out. So I fled into the night.
Right.
So I was
back down the stairs.
Oh yeah,
did you have to sort of push past her?
Yes, I did. Right. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I can't do this. Oh, I don't feel well. I made 3 excuses up in the same. I can't do this. I don't.
Only 1/3 of my heart works.
Yeah. I don't feel well. No. So that meant that the next morning I was going to have to go into work and face her after being a cad, an absolute cad.
Did you think she didn't believe you then?
Well, she clearly didn't believe me because we were going to indulge in sex. That was the whole idea.
Yeah.
And then
Shocking.
when I suddenly... I think it was something to do with the light.
Right.
Because, of course, in a pub, it can be a bit dim. And going home, in the back of a cab, it's quite dark and all that.
Right.
And then I think it was the minute she switched on...
Had there been any snoggage going on?
Oh, yeah, there was all that
this?
was going on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then the minute she switched on the landing lights, I sort of went... like that. And the next morning,
Can you have found a slightly less inappropriate sort of way to get out of there?
Well, how? What could I have done?
Well, I can't really go into it from this point of view.
But no, and I thought, I was a terrible cad and been horrible to this poor girl. But secondly, she may have got in a few minutes before me and started whinging and moaning to everybody about what had happened last night. And the shame factor was so huge. Yeah. I genuinely, definitely, thought to myself, I can't show my face. Yeah. In fact, I might even get sacked for this because it's such appalling behaviour.
So what happened
with another
then?
member of staff.
Did you go in?
Well, I was very, very lucky because I went in, and at the moment I went in, she wasn't actually in the newsroom.
Right.
I don't know whether she'd gone to the loo or something, or whether she'd gone to another department or something like that. And the news editor grabbed me. It's one of those mornings when he said, "Don't take your coat off," right, and turned me round and sent me off to, like Newcastle Magistrates Court or something.
For a week or something.
Well, no. There was a genuine job on, and then... I managed to sort of fumble through the day without going in the office, ringing up all the time. They said, well, can't you come back to the... Oh, no, I can't go back now. Right. Another big story and all this kind of stuff.
I presume she didn't throw a sickie then?
Well, I don't know because, I couldn't say, is she there or anything like that. But, I mean, that went on for a couple of days.
Did you ever see her again?
Well, of course I did because I worked with her and it was all horribly bad. In fact, funny enough, the next time I saw her must have been the following day. Right. And when I walked in, I'm not joking, she was literally hiding behind a copy of the Financial Times. Honestly, poor girl over in the corner.
I bet.
She felt worse than me.
Yeah.
And
well, imagine being rejected by you. I mean, that is not something you'd want to have to live with, is it?
It's terrible, isn't
Absolutely shocking story, but very good. That was Listography. This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. There will be, of course, a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Ask Porky will be up tomorrow, and there might be a few questions for you after that very interesting story you just told us about your time in Newcastle.
Indeed.
Paul says this, I don't think she thought she'd met Mr. World. I reckon it might have been her doing the runner.
Well, it could... Look, I'm prepared as a gentleman to concede that, it was probably a rejection on either side. But I was the one who sort of physically initiated it, you know what I mean?
Well, Claire says this, the sultry tones are back, thank the Lord, I can now drift off to them happily.
Is that right?
Sending a lot of people to sleep, which is no bad thing. And here's one from Steve. Who says you can ring in sick at talkSPORT at the last minute, get the 2 mics to fill in for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Now listen, all this stuff you put on your food and all that, does it include tomato ketchup?
All this stuff I put on my food. Well,
yeah.
I don't usually have ketchup on many things, actually.
Exactly.
I made a very nice chicken curry this afternoon.
Did you?
Which I used a tin of tomatoes, but I didn't use tomato ketchup.
I don't remember seeing a picture of it.
I didn't put one out. No.
Did you put a picture?
I
out?
do normally, yeah, but I didn't bother because I thought I might upset you.
Well, we're having our website rebuilt at the moment,
we
okay?
Are, yes.
And when we get it up and running, we're going to have a special page of recipes that you're going to put together.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Well, maybe a few little videos as well.
A few little videos of your cooking stuff. That's
on any
good.
reason, I'm not bigging myself up here, but people are always asking me for the recipes.
Oh, they are,
to do little videos on Twitter. It doesn't really work on Twitter.
And they always look pretty exotic.
Yeah.
But anyway, the reason I'm asking you this is because for the first time in history, sales of tomato ketchup, the famous Heinz tomato ketchup, appear to be going down.
Really?
It says traditional table sauces could soon be on the way out, including Heinz tomato ketchup, as more and more Britons are switching to spicier alternatives.
Ah, yes, because if you go to any sort of supermarket now, they have so many different types of spicy sauces. You know, they've got all those ones that they do in Nando's. You can buy those in the shops now.
That's right.
And all those various Caribbean sort of hot pepper sauces.
Yeah,
Funny
all
enough,
that, yeah.
I mean, I had some ketchup on. I took the family out on Sunday night for a bit of dinner. And it was a sort of upmarket sort of hamburger place.
Yes.
And so I had ketchup there because I like ketchup on chips.
Right.
But that's about all I put it on.
It says here...
I don't put it on anything else.
It says here, this study said that sauces that enjoy a sizzling... hot sauces, right, and spicier sauces are enjoying a sales growth annually of 7.5%.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, tomato ketchup and brown sauce, which are the only two I've got in my fridge, by the way, because I'm very traditional about this, you know. And I don't use tomato ketchup a lot. I like tomatoes, and I like tinned tomatoes.
Right.
But
do you put it on? You must put it on chips, though, right?
No, I don't. No, I don't like tomato ketchup and chips. No, the only time I ever use it is occasionally on a bacon sandwich.
Okay,
but I prefer brown sauce.
I prefer brown sauce on a bacon sandwich.
Yeah, but it says tomato ketchup and brown sauce sales have dropped 3.7% over the last year. But the biggest faller is salad cream, down by 8.6%.
Now, funny you should say that because I've got some salad cream in the fridge I've had for a while.
Right,
and I have to find out if it's something that I can still use. Yeah. But, I mean, it stays for years. That stuff
does it?
Because I'm going to make myself a smoked mackerel salad. And one of the things that's nice with smoked mackerel is salad cream.
Is that right?
One of the few things I'll put it with,
Mayonnaise down 2.8%.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, one of my kids loves mayonnaise on his chips.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is kind of unusual. It's
well, you get that in restaurants. You get that in... that's right. You get that... Is it France?
Well,
that's
France
right.
and Belgium,
France and Belgium. Yeah. It's Belgium I'm thinking about. You get a bowl of chips and a bowl of mayonnaise to stick them in. But it says supermarkets have cottoned on to the trend for ever spicier meals. Tesco now sells the world's fiercest chili, which is called the Carolina Reaper. You ever heard of that?
The Carolina Reaper? I've never heard of it.
That must be from
How did you describe it before?
Eh? The world's fiercest chili.
Fiercest?
The world's fiercest chili, the Carolina Reaper.
Right.
That must come from either North or South Carolina, I presume.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Very well spotted.
And exactly, yeah. And Asda, the supermarket chain, have recently sent a team of buyers to Mexico to research ever hotter sauces.
Really?
How about that?
See, it's interesting, isn't it? The palate has changed so much that, the previously only spicy thing you could really ever eat was going out for a curry. Whereas now,
that's right,
there's Mexican places everywhere.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you buy chilies in the shop. I mean, I think a couple of weeks ago, I made myself a little frittata, but I used one chili, and it was so hot. Yeah. I was literally hopping around the flat. I was going, I didn't no idea it was this hot.
Well, I couldn't.
Because they're just too hot. But you eat spicy curries, though, don't you?
No, I mean, if I have a curry, I have a korma, which is mild, isn't it?
It is.
What's the other one?
Or biryani.
Biryani, I like.
Yeah, but it's a little bit spicy usually.
Yeah, well, it's quite spicy. I like a bit of spice. I don't like it too hot, you know. And increasingly, as I've got older, believe it or not, I like black pepper on everything now.
Do you?
So if I have a ham and cheese sandwich, I want black pepper on it. If I have...
my dad was like that. He likes to put a lot of black pepper and stuff.
If I have a spag bol now in a restaurant, I ask them to get the old big
grinder.
The grinder out. Same on pizza and all that kind of
black
stuff.
pepper's very good for you as well.
Well, it's good for you, but I used to hate it. I never used to have a palate for it at all, but I increasingly like it. Now,
okay, let me read you a couple of quick tweets.
Please do.
We've got a lot of time. Roy says this: Teflon Parry insults the guy's wife, puts the boot through his frayed knighthood, then the other bloke takes the blame.
That's right.
Extraordinary. And Brian says, poor lady must still be having counselling from the day she nearly had horizontal refreshment with the plank.
Well, yeah, maybe she is, Maybe she is. These things just sort of happen, as you go on through life,
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's on here? You can ring and say, oh, no, that one, no, there's not very many which are, I'm afraid, very complimentary towards me.
No. Sam says, indulge in sex. That's one way of putting it. The poor girl dodged a porky bullet and didn't even know it.
Well, that's very harsh, isn't it? Very harsh indeed.
People find, only I'm one of those few people who can remember the days when you were like that, you see, even though that was before I met you.
Yes.
But, very few people can actually imagine you as a bit of a Lothario. Which, of course, you were.
Of course I was, yeah. I had
shockingly.
my day. But, I had to sort of get real in life, so to speak, something perhaps you never did. You know what I mean?
Well, 1/3 of my heart is not the 1/3 of my heart that doesn't work.
No, exactly.
1/3 of my heart doesn't have any feeling.
Exactly, yeah. Now then, one or two more here, but some I can't read out because they're rather insulting towards me, you know what I mean?
Why can't you read them out if they're insulting?
Well, because they got bad language in them and that sort of stuff.
Oh, right.
Anyway, it says...
well, I'll help you out and tell you it's 7-0 to San Francisco 49ers at the moment against the LA Rams.
Nobody cares.
LA Rams were not in LA until last year. I mean, they were in LA before, but they moved to St. Louis.
That's right, yeah.
And now they've moved back to
LA.
LA.
Moved back. It's all the franchise business, isn't it?
24 years ago they played in LA. Didn't seem like that.
24 years ago.
I guess it was when I was there.
God, it is a long time ago, indeed. Here we are. What's this one? No.
Well, why are you going to keep saying you're going to read something out and then not read it out?
Well, because, some of them are rather offensive and some of them don't make sense.
Well, all right.
Simple as that.
Well, why don't you wait
that
until
report I've just read you on the spices, by the way, comes from the magazine you so nearly edited, The Grocer.
Does it?
Yes.
Oh, well, you see, The Grocer's still a leading organ
when
it comes to trends in food shopping and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Now, why don't you tell us instead, in the meantime, because we've hardly got any time left.
Yeah.
The Champions League is tonight, of course.
Certainly
you've got
is.
PSG against Arsenal.
That's right.
Arsenal, who everybody is roundly condemning at the moment, is not being up to speed or up to scratch.
Yeah.
But PSG not very good either. You want to give us a prediction?
For which one first?
PSG Arsenal.
PSG Arsenal. And where's it? It's at PSG, isn't it?
Well, that's why I said PSG Arsenal.
That's right, yeah. I'm going to say that Arsenal will win 2-0.
Really?
Yes.
Well, they're going to win 2-0 in Paris?
Yes, I think so, yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
And then, of course, you've got Manchester City against Mönchengladbach as well.
Yeah.
In Group C.
Yeah.
That's at the Etihad.
Yeah, I think that'll be 3-1 to City.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Barcelona-Celtic is in the same group.
Yes. And that's in Barcelona, right?
I think Celtic are going to be struggling there, aren't they?
I think that could be like I hate to have a downer on Celtic, but I think they'll struggle to lose by less than 2 goals.
Yes, I think you may well be right.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two mics. Well, blow my socks off. Do Australians become conditioned to this? Because that's not normal for human beings. I mean, it might be normal for people who are born in Saudi Arabia, but it ain't normal for human beings.
Well, we're quite...
There are no human beings in Saudi Arabia, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, but their Bedouin roots have led them to be able to...
Sorry, I asked that.
No, their Bedouin roots led them to be able to live in those sort of arid conditions for
what about
centuries.
Africa?
Sorry?
What about when near the equator? What about that?
Yeah, but I mean, people...
They're all humans,
No, people born and raised on the equator have had families there for thousands of years.
True.
So they get used to it. But I mean, most of the people who now live in Australia came from somewhere else originally, if you see what I mean.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, their ancestors and all that kind of stuff. No, I'm sorry, Sarah. I mean, how do you cope with that? For instance, I really
they have air conditioning like everybody else does.
Yeah,
What's a stupid question?
No, it's not. It's not. You know as well as I do that if you break down in your car in Australia, you die, basically, don't you? You're driving between A and B. I went into Asda to get